try the simplified version of it.
The simplified version of it. I imagine it'll take me a good 2 weeks before I get the hang of
it. And at the end of the stream, every time there's the challenge where we got to take this coal train down to the bottom level, and then I quote unquote unload it, and then we bring it back up to the top level.
And then we run someone over with the train, right?
I'm sure I'm gonna get run over about 20 times because I usually do.
Yeah, I love running people over in trains. They go, do they go splat? Do they go under the train? Do they get eviscerated? What happens to them?
It depends on how I get run over. Sometimes I'll go flying. Other times I'll just kind of phase through the world.
Hang on a minute, chat. Before we talk about Pearl Harbor, we have to talk about train homicide. Okay.
Yep, right. Always.
Okay, do you want to start? Are we ready to go?
No, I think I'm good. We could start right away if we
All right,
want to.
Cool. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Spit the Shit podcast episode. It's episode 2 now, right? Actually, where are we at again?
Yes, episode 2. Officially episode 2, at least.
Officially episode 2. And today we're going to be talking about Pearl Harbor. And we're going to be talking about military aviation as well. Probably a load of random shit like that because we like warfare, because we're men.
Yes.
Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, the United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces of the Empire of Japan. The United States was at peace with that nation, and at the solicitation of Japan, was still in conversation with its government and its emperor, looking towards the maintenance of peace in the Pacific. Indeed, 1 hour after Japan air squadrons had commenced bombing in the American island of Oahu, the Japanese ambassador to the United States and his colleague delivered to our Secretary of State a formal reply to a recent American message, and while this reply stated it seemed useless to continue the existing diplomatic negotiations, it contained no threat or hint of war or of armed attack. So,
man, you pulled out the whole quote there.
I did. Hello, everybody.
Oh,
hello,
yeah, I'm impressed.
Thank you. I've always wanted to say like old historical speeches myself. That was fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. I'm very impressed.
Hell yeah. Thank you. Do you want to start us off, Joe? What should we talk about first?
Well, let's see. It's December 7th, so I'm bad at math, so I won't be able to do the math here really quick, but it has been a long time since the attack on Pearl Harbor took place today, however many years ago.
83 years, yeah. 83 years,
the naval and air forces of Japan struck first against America so they could try to take over half of the Pacific Ocean.
The Japanese in this period of time, very imperialistic. They wanted to create a great Asian co-prosperity sphere that would be ruled by the Japanese to fight those evil imperialist white men.
They had a really cool flag at the time, too.
Yeah, it had a cool flag, that's very true. A date that will live in infamy.
It's a really quick off topic, but about 2 years ago, I went to an airsoft event, and a bunch of people had a bunch of different like meme flags there. There were some national flags and all sorts of other things. So the next big event, airsoft event I went to, I brought my Imperial Japanese flag with me, that became the official banner of Red Team.
It's good.
So I have to bring the flag every single event now for Red Team.
It's a good thing there weren't any Koreans or Chinese, I guess, on the other team. Otherwise, they would have probably taken exception to that.
Well, actually, there were some on our team, on Red Team.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they thought it was hilarious, though.
Yeah, it's always a mixed bag as to whether or not people are going to get offended by that, I guess.
Yeah. If they get offended, then they're no fun at airsoft.
Yeah, it's
about getting shot anyway.
Yeah, it's a very sore moment of history. Yeah, so I guess the intent behind the attack on Pearl Harbor is Japan at the time had found itself in a bit of a pickle as we like to say in the United Kingdom. So the Japanese had been at war with the Chinese at this point for, I think, at least about 7-8 years at this point. I can't quite remember. And the United States took exception to the, I guess, the aggressive expansion of the Japanese, as it was a threat to their holding on the Pacific theater. Obviously, you've got the Philippines, you've got various islands in the Pacific. So what the United States did in the first instance to try and curb Japanese aggression was to embargo oil sales to the Japanese, which was a big problem for the Japanese as they had very little in the way of their own oil reserves. So they were basically stuck with two decisions. They could either essentially declare war on the British Empire and the Dutch in order to secure their oil fields in the Indonesian islands, or they could continue their war in China and potentially risk war with the United States of America. They ended up picking They ended up picking both options at the same time. But I guess war with all the other Western empires was inevitable, given both the United States and the United Kingdom had very serious critical interests in the area. The British, obviously, had India, and you guys had obviously you had Hawaii, the Marshall Islands, the Philippines. Didn't want that to fall into Japanese hands. So because the Japanese were in this pickle, they knew that the war would be inevitable. So their big gamble to try and prevent, I guess, a kind of like a fair, open battle with the United States was to launch a surprise attack on Hawaii on the 7th of December and basically destroy the United States Pacific Fleet whilst it was still anchored, as they were hoping to catch all the capital ships, all your best battleships, all your carriers in the region, knock those out of action. Then you should be no threat to the Japanese forces in the area for at least several years. But unfortunately, the Japanese severely underestimated US production capabilities, but then they also unfortunately were not able to capture the US entire Pacific Fleet at Hawaii, as many capital ships were elsewhere at the time. So yep, sorry, go on.
So there's a few problems with the Japanese predicament come summer of 41.
Mm-hmm.
So the ground war in China had grinded to a halt because the infrastructure in China was not suitable to the Japanese way of war. So everything had basically grounded to a halt. And not many people are aware, but the Japanese army and the Japanese navy were highly competitive with each other.
Mm-hmm.
They did not like working with each other at all. They did not like sharing supplies between each other. So it was very much a competition to see who could convince the government to give them supplies. So what the army wanted to do was they wanted to continue their war in China. They wanted to continue down to Vietnam and Indochina, and work their way kind of towards India to create kind of a land bridge to get their resources from. But the Navy kept pointing out, hey, well, guess what? You guys have been stuck in these same positions for almost 2 years now. Let's go with the Navy option. Let's funnel all the resources into the Navy, leave the Army out to dry, and we can knock out the Americans and take over all of the battle stations in the Pacific that we would need. So the Japanese government at the time, they're like, all right, well, we've gone with the Army's plans for the last several years. At first they were working, but now they're not. If we just keep funneling money and resources and time into something that's not working, what's gonna happen? What's the cost of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they decided, all right, we're gonna go with the Navy's option, and we're gonna give all the resources to the Navy for now. They're gonna do their lightning quick attack and take over the Pacific, knock America out of the war, and then we'll be free to do what we want for the foreseeable future. Now, one thing to note is the Japanese knew that an attack on Pearl Harbor, even if all of the objectives were secure, it was basically a band-aid fix to a shotgun slug wound. They knew that America would be back in the fight in the future. The hope was they could knock America off their feet for a period of time to hopefully give them another 2 to 3 years before America could come back ready to fight. But it was the failure to really do any significant long-term damage at Pearl Harbor, miss the carriers, miss all sorts of other things at Pearl Harbor, which allowed the United States to bounce back so quickly.
That's right, and of course the the attack on Pearl Harbor as well was motivated by the British attack against the Italians in the Battle of Taranto. I think the place is called Taranto, where the first all-airborne I don't know how to describe it. It's like the first all-naval aviation attack on an enemy fleet was first conducted by the British in 1940 at the Battle of Taranto, where, funnily enough, British biplanes, the Swordfish torpedo bombers, attacked the Italian fleet whilst they were stationed up on the west coast of Italy and did major damage that way. So the Japanese saw the success of that attack and thought they could inflict the same thing at Hawaii and disable the US fleet.
So one of the problems with the Japanese plan of attack is there was no room for error, right? Everything had to go according to plan. It was an all or nothing attack. If even one objective was missed, the chances of America being able to bounce back and get right back into the war that much sooner was exponentially increased.
Mm-hmm.
So when all of the dive bombers and torpedo bombers and all that came to Pearl Harbor, and they're like, there's no carriers here. I mean, it was instantly, they knew they were in trouble at that point. They knew if the carriers were not there, that means probably a significant bulk of the fleet was also not there.
Carriers
and it didn't help that. It didn't help. I'd say, do you know how many ships were like completely lost during Pearl Harbor? It was only a handful, I want to say. Like, there were hundreds of ships damaged, but there were only maybe a handful that were actually like lost in the harbor.
4 sunk, 4 battleships sunk, 1 battleship converted into a kind of I guess shore protection vessel was sunk, 1 tug was sunk, and then there was just a lot of damage. So not very much was actually sunk. A lot of it was up and running within the next month.
Yeah, so there's really 2 failures of the attack here. One is they were unable to achieve all of their objectives, and 2, the damage they inflicted was easily repairable.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where, no, sure, you damaged the fleet heavily in the moment, but how long is it going to take to fix it? The Japanese were hoping that they would be given another 2 to 3 years of time, but the Americans, I mean, they pulled all the ships out of the harbor. Like, all right, slap some flex tape on this, you're good to go. Slap some flex tape on that, you're good to go. And within like half a year, there was the Battle of Midway.
That's absolutely right. So if we go over the entire losses of the US Pacific Fleet in Pearl Harbor, so 4 battleships sunk, 4 battleships damaged, 1 X-battleship sunk, 1 tug sunk, 3 light cruisers damaged, 3 destroyers damaged, 3 auxiliary ships damaged, 188 aircraft destroyed, 158 aircraft damaged, 2,000 sailors killed, 109 marines killed, 208 soldiers killed, 68 civilian killed. So in all, we've got 2,403 killed, 1,200 wounded, and of those civilians, there were 68 civilians killed, 35 wounded, with 3 civilian aircraft shot down. So most of the civilians were killed they were support staff to the airfields, or they worked in the hospitals or the radar stations kind of surrounding Hawaii at the time. And if you're wondering why soldiers were killed as well at Pearl Harbor, there were actually Army Air Corps aviators stationed in Hawaii to try and protect the naval base from such an attack, and there were also army personnel who were guarding the airfields as well. So it wasn't just naval personnel stationed at Pearl Harbor. The army was supposed to protect them as well. There were Army P-40 Curtiss fighters stationed at the base, not just United States Navy, well, not just United States Navy, F4F Wildcats. P-40s, that's right. Warhawks.
So one of the things that there was a few failures on the American side as well when it came to repelling the attack, which was the radar stations actually picked up the approaching aircraft. They knew these aircraft were coming, but there had been a flight of B-17s that was scheduled to land at the airfield locally. So the radio operators all thought, that's just the B-17s. They show up kind of weird, so it'll look like 400 fighters instead. And when the plane started flying over, they looked outside and went, yeah, those are not B-17s. We've majorly fucked up.
So the actual attack at Pearl Harbor, that began at 7:48 in the morning at Hawaiian time, when most of the crew at the time were just waking up, just eating their chow, brushing their teeth, swabbing obviously the decks, and they were quite, I guess, lax in terms of their security at the time. They weren't expecting an attack would reach them at Hawaii. However, sorry, go on.
I believe it was also Sunday, which was the fleet's day off if they were in the harbor.
Mm-hmm. That's right.
So the B-17 flight, I actually don't know what happened to it. I think it was delayed, which is why the radar operators first thought, they're like, oh yeah, they just show up kind of weird on the radar. So I'm sure they wwere sure it was the B-17s, because the B-17s were supposed to be arriving at the same time that the Japanese bombers arrived.
That's right.
It wasn't until it wasn't until the airfields really started being strafed that people realized, yeah, those aren't ours. Those are someone else's.
Yes, that's right. The Japanese were slightly more smarter than most of the enemies that the Western Allies had faced before. They knew that the United States would be listening into their radio traffic and that their intelligence was being spied on. So prior to the attack, they spread a higher amount of traffic across all US areas of interest, not just Pearl Harbor, to make it more confusing for Americans. So the Americans knew that an attack was coming, but because they'd included fake rumors onto Pearl Harbor itself, they didn't know where the attack would be launched. And yeah, that's obviously how they managed to slip by before they were intercepted. But I think when you compare the size of the US, I guess, kind of garrison, how many aircraft they had versus the Japanese, even if the United States were able to muster their fighters in time and were prepared for the attack, it still would have probably resulted in a disaster anyway. Obviously, the Japanese carriers greatly outnumbered the number of American fighters at the time.
Yeah, and another thing is a lot of the hired fleet officers in the Japanese Navy had gone to U.S. military schools. In the 1920s and very early 30s, many of the admirals and generals had come to the United States to learn at military academies and other similar types of schools before returning back to Japan.
Mm-hmm.
So they really learned, and so when they were over here, they took note of what our mannerisms were, how we conducted ourselves in warfare, when the lazy times were versus when our most alert times were, and all sorts of that. And they compiled all that together, and they're like, well, we're going to war with the people we just learned from, so let's use the information we learned from them against them, and hopefully it'll work out. But that comes back to the all or nothing attack, where if all the objectives aren't complete, then the mission is a total failure.
Yeah, that's right. So essentially, the Japanese, I guess, admirals at the time idealized Alfred Thayer Mahan's, I guess, strategic outlook on naval warfare. So Alfred Mahan was a US, I think he was an admiral before he retired, And he wasn't the inventor of, I guess, the concept of decisive battle doctrine, but he was perhaps the most experienced and well-read, I guess, naval strategist on how you can apply the decisive battle doctrine on, at the time, modern naval warfare involving carriers. So the decisive battle doctrine at the time was about destroying the maximum number of battleships that the enemy navy had. And as you said before, the hope was to buy time for Japan to consolidate its position and increase its naval strength before the shipbuilding act, the Vincent Walsh Act, erased the chances of victory. So then the next idea for the Japanese was to basically deliver a decisive blow to America's ability to mobilize its forces in the Pacific. Because obviously, if you've got no ships, then and you've got no escorts for your troop transports, then you can obviously mount a counterattack and start invading the Japanese home islands with your forces. So the battleships were the main targets of the Japanese forces because they are the biggest prestige ships of the navies at the time. Because it wasn't this, obviously World War II is the first major war in which we get to see the shift away from battleships being the primary force of arms of a fleet, and we see it shift to the carriers. People like to, I guess, kind of criticize the British for going for a battleship heavy doctrine rather than going for a carrier heavy doctrine during the interwar period. But at the time, the British were the global naval hegemon, and for them to, I guess, throw all their eggs in one basket and to go switch towards carrier warfare when it might, in the end, turn out to not be so effective as was decided in theory, could have been disastrous for it. So they did stick to a battleship-centric fleet. But as we would all find out later with the sinking of HMS Prince of Wales and other British battleships who were poorly escorted trying to operate in the Pacific, this Pearl Harbor in particular did show that the future of naval warfare would now be based on carrier warfare.
Yeah, so I know one thing that is one common thought around that time was like, all right, no, these carriers, they can be used effectively, but even at the start of World War II, and even after a few significant naval battles had been fought, many of the admirals still weren't convinced that the carrier was the way to go. Mm-hmm. They thought it was going to be like the tank in World War I, where they're like, yep, this is the only time we're ever going to use them and never again. Only for everyone to go, actually, that's a bad idea. We still need tanks.
Yep, exactly.
So, I mean, and here's another thing is the U.S. did not have a perfect naval record in World War II as well. I mean, like, sure, there are highlighted losses, like, what was it, the Yorktown at Midway?
Mm-hmm, Yorktown.
No, there's losses, but there are naval defeats that the U.S. suffered in total. There weren't just, one or two ships lost, oh no, but we still won the battle. No, there were naval battle losses the United States suffered. I don't want to say the Battle of the Coral Sea is one of them, but we did lose we lost a carrier there, and something else, I forget what, but there was the Battle off Guadalcanal in 42 that was also very disastrous for the U.S. Navy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the first, I guess, kind of after Pearl Harbor, the first several months of American, and not just American as well, actually, the US Pacific Fleet, once it was good to go and try to engage in counterattacks against the Japanese, was also joined by the Royal Australian Navy and the Royal Dutch Navy. But obviously, given the size of those countries and how much manpower they had, we're not talking big numbers of support. But yeah, at the Battle of Guadalcanal in particular, the US was supported by 2 Australian cruisers and 4 Australian destroyers, I believe. But the main issue that the Western Allies had when facing the Japanese is that they didn't have a volume-based naval doctrine. They had a small number of highly trained and highly technologically advanced ships with some of the finest torpedo technology at the time. Their torpedoes had incredibly long range, and they used oxygen in order to propel. And obviously the advantages of having oxygen propelling your torpedoes is that they leave a considerably smaller wake and they're much harder to detect when they're in the water, which gets through obviously radar and sonar technology. So what the Japanese would do when the American task forces would head towards them, they would send the cruisers and the destroyers out first. They'd basically spam as many torpedoes in the path that they knew the task force was going to take, and then they would retreat under smoke cover. So before the US could even get into range to start attacking, they would have to dodge loads of torpedoes, and then that would ruin their formations, whilst the Japanese, being a much smaller formation, would be able to remain in their formations and, using their superior range and superior marksmanship training, attack the United States out of their comfort zone.
Another thing that the Japanese Navy was phenomenal at doing, and I mean, even U.S. admirals in the middle, like in the beginning and middle of the war, were very quick to admit this, is the Japanese were the best at nighttime fighting. They were the best at midnight raids, midnight battles, things that happen in the middle of the night when there's no light around. They were the best naval force when it came to night fighting, which is one of the reasons why the Battle off Guadalcanal was such a disaster for the U.S. and Australian Navy. Is they thought the Allied ships, they thought, oh, okay, these ships, they're probably just our guys. And suddenly all of the searchlights sprang on, torpedoes launched, cannons fired, and everything's exploding within the U.S. side of things, and nobody knows what to do. And I mean, shoot, I think it was for the first 1 to 2 hours, they thought it was friendly fire.
Yeah, that's the thing. At the time, obviously, the ability to communicate and to identify what's going on around you wasn't as advanced as it was today. So yeah, it was really difficult at the time to positively ID what was enemy and what exactly was going on. So the first wave, when the Japanese did attack Pearl Harbor, the first wave was to be the primary attack, and then the second wave was to attack the carriers as its first objective, and then cruisers second, with the battleships as the tertiary target. So the first wave carried most of the weapons to cripple the US Pacific Fleet. It had the 91 aerial torpedoes, which were designed with an anti-roll mechanism and a wooden rudder extension that allowed them to operate in the shallow waters. Normally, a standard torpedo at the time, if you tried to drop it into the shallow waters of somewhere like Pearl Harbor, they would essentially not activate, or they break when you drop them, as they were rated to drop. They were rated to activate at lower depths. So obviously, as you said before, the aircraft were ordered to attack the highest value targets, which are the battleships and carriers. And then, other than that, they would then focus on the cruisers and destroyers when necessary. So the first wave of dive bombers were to attack ground targets, because the United States at the time, you made a token effort to defend the airfield. You had anti-aircraft gun emplacements set up around the airfields, and you also had the fighters, US Army fighters, the P-40s, deployed on the airfields. But unfortunately, the Army officers at the time felt that the biggest threat to US forces at Pearl Harbor would be sabotage from Japanese infiltrators. So what they did was they bunched all their aircraft together and packed them very tightly on the ground, which made them easier to protect from a ground-based standpoint, as it was easier for patrolmen and guardsmen to protect them. But the problem is that when you're being faced with an aerial invasion, when you're being attacked by dive bombers, well, now you've got all your vital aircraft all stuck together, nice big juicy targets for bombs and other shit to destroy them, or to be strafed with machine gun fire.
I'm gonna kind of question why they kind of decided to all right, guys, let's put all of our aircraft in one place. Surely they won't sabotage all of them at once.
Yeah, it's a really weird, I guess. It doesn't make sense strategically, does it? Because it's like, well,
it does, but it doesn't, because it depends. Are you watching the aircraft 24/7, or are you just having occasional patrols walk by? See, that's kind of what would we would need to find out, because I mean, if they had these aircraft under surveillance under all hours of the day and night, then okay, yeah, I can see them being put in the same spot. But if you're just having the occasional patrol walk by, you might as well put 1 aircraft per hangar, or like maybe 2 to 3 aircraft per hangar. So if somebody does get caught, they're only sabotaging 3 aircraft and not 30.
Well, that's exactly right. You hit the nail on the head there. The issue with their line of thought is that, again, it's like, okay, so you spread everything out, and that prevents you from suffering. That basically reduces the ability for the enemy to destroy your entire fleet, your entire aerial fleet, in one attack. So if you spread things out, it's much harder to protect them all, but then you're only losing a small amount of your total stockpile of aircraft. And then once the first couple aircrafts have been destroyed, that's unfortunate, but now you know you're under attack, and that now you know that you need to protect your aircraft. So yeah, I don't agree with the army's planning on the protection of their aircraft.
And actually, so this reminds me of a NASCAR story, actually. So I forget what year it was, but it was in the earlier Talladega years. There was a 60-car race for the NASCAR Cup Series, and about 2 laps into it, 23 cars had technical problems. And that was after the problems in the garage had been found. There were, I think, like 30 to 35 cars that had slashed tires and cut oil lines.
Wow.
But they were able to fix all that stuff before the race. But once they got going on the track, everyone, like half the field, realized, oh, hey, our cars all still have problems. And I believe it was like the biggest tampering vandalism in the NASCAR Cup Series in history.
Yeah.
And they never found the guy who did it.
Yeah. Did they know the motive? Why would they go do that?
No, but I mean, it was literally considered attempted mass murder.
Oh, I see. Yeah,
like that's how bad it was. And this is the 70s, so the safety is not up to par like today is. But like they ended up they searched, I think, like the whole state for this guy at one point, and they never found him. There were no leads, there were no eyewitnesses, nothing. And it's one of those things where, I mean, they still consider the quote Talladega tamperer, end quote, to be at large and still arrestable, but they never found him. And so, I mean, that goes back to, putting everything in one spot. If one person manages to slip in and you have all of your valuables in one spot, that just makes it easier for them to take or tamper or break whatever they're trying to do.
It was Kara, apparently. He says, and you will never find me. So we found it. We finally found the guy. Kara, you bloody maniac. What was your motivation? Why did you do that for, Kara? Are you jealous? Do it for the lols? Are you jealous you never made it as a NASCAR driver, Kara? Are you too intelligent and rich to be a NASCAR driver? Is that your problem?
It reminds me of this other story. I don't know if you've ever heard of Mike Burnfire, but they do the Fallout campfire stories. And I mean, they're stories from their military careers, and they're amazing stories. I absolutely love listening to them.
Yeah.
And there was the one guy who was in Iraq. I think it was Iraq during like somewhere between 05 to 010. Or 05 to 2010. And one of the things that they would do at night was, if the base was getting mortared, everyone would have to stand in the hallway. So he made the joke. He's like, all right, boys, bunch up. They can't hit all of us at once.
There's more of us and you've got bullets.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, it just goes back to the line of thinking of, I mean, unless you have these things under watch 24/7 without exception, there's no reason to bunch everything together, because that just gives your enemy, if anything, easier access. Because instead of having to go to hangar or building to building, they walk in, they're like, all right, it's free real estate from this point on.
It's free real estate. That's right. It's always best to lose a little bit rather than lose everything, I guess. Yeah, it's better to spread things out.
And that's one of the strategies in Hearts of Iron 4. You can either do concentrated industry or you can do dispersed industry. So if you do dispersed industry, if your country's constantly getting strategically bombarded, you don't take as many like stat debuffs.
God,
I'm gonna have to figure out later tonight.
I haven't played Hearts of Iron 4 in Hey, Kravis, I haven't played Hearts of Iron 4 in God knows how long. I've played it in 6 years, I don't think. I should play it again.
So I played some last week, and I'm playing again tonight with my brother.
It'd be fun.
He's playing the United States, I'm playing the Soviet Union, and hopefully I won't be destroyed this time. Because one of my buddies, he recommended a specific strategy to me, but he forgot to mention that I need to make like 1 million divisions for the strategy to work. He just went, oh yeah, downsize your divisions, it'll be fine. So I did, and Germany and Romania just sliced through all my units like a hot knife through butter. And I'm like, yep, I'm never doing that strategy again.
Yeah, Hearts of Iron 4, it's one of those games where it rewards you for, I guess, cheesing all the time, but if you try to play it like in a sense if you try to play it in a way that makes sense historically, then it's a really bad way to play it, right? Like the game rewards you for having 40,000 strong divisions rather than like having well spread out divisions with armor, infantry support, and artillery, which is always kind of rubbed me the wrong way about it.
So actually, there is a recent update that kind of addressed this. So the different types of divisions will actually perform a lot better or worse depending on what you have them assigned to do. So like smaller mountain divisions will have more benefits when attacking through the terrain they're designed to fight through. So let's say you send a bunch of mountain divisions up against a bunch of infantry divisions in the Alps. Those mountain divisions are going to do a lot more damage than those infantry divisions are going to do.
Oh, okay.
But it's also vice versa when you're out on like in the steppes of Russia. So if you have a bunch of mountaineering divisions in Russia and you send them up against a bunch of infantry divisions, those infantry divisions are going to absolutely beat the crap out of your mountain divisions.
Yeah, that makes sense, I guess. Yeah. I guess there's a game still reward, though, like having super strong, massive divisions with high, like, soft and attack power? Or did they punish you now for having ridiculously big divisions?
The soft and attack power is still... I'm not sure if it needs work or not. I couldn't tell you enough about it. But it all depends on what you're using your divisions for. So... like a smaller mountain division is going to do better in mountains versus an infantry division than it would out in a mountain tile. It'd perform better than it would out in a plains tile, so to say.
Yeah, to get the bonuses to those stats. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. Now, I'm still kind of trying to figure it out, and I totally did not give myself millions of equipment through a single-player save of the multiplayer game me and my brother had. I totally didn't use console commands. Definitely not.
Definitely not. No, never use console commands, no. I'm just better than you at the game. I'm not using console commands. So, the day after the attack at Pearl Harbor, Mr. Roosevelt, good old Roosevelt, he delivered his famous Day of Infamy speech to a joint session of Congress, and he called for a formal declaration of war against the Empire of Japan. That was on December 8th, and Congress obviously obliged his request in less than an hour. So on December 11th, Germany and Italy also declared war on the United States, even though their tripartite pact didn't demand it. So Congress then issued a declaration of war against Germany and Italy on the 11th of December as well. So at the time, the UK had already been at war with Germany since September 1939 and with Italy since June 1940. And good old Winston Churchill had promised to declare war within the hour of a Japanese attack on the United States. So upon learning of the Japanese attacks on Malaya, Singapore and Hong Kong, Churchill determined there was no need to wait or consult the US government, and he summoned the Japanese ambassador and the United Kingdom declared war on Japan 9 hours after the United States did. So we were now in it together finally. So the attack itself was quite a shock to all the allies in the Pacific theater. The further losses compounded the alarming setback. So Japan, very quickly after Pearl Harbor, attacked the Philippines. And on 3 days after Pearl Harbor, the battleship Prince of Wales, the British battleship Prince of Wales, and battlecruise Repulse, Repulse is best go on Azure Lane, by the way, were sunk off the coast of Malaya, causing Churchill to, in a later recollection, say, "In all the war, I never received a more direct shock. As I turned and twisted in bed, the full horror of the news sank in upon me. There were no British or American capital ships in the Indian Ocean or the Pacific, except, oh my god, he's huge, or or the that shocked me. Fuck, was I? All the Pacific except the American survivors of Pearl Harbor were hastening back to California. So Japan was supreme, and everywhere we were was weak and naked. So yes, the Western allies were not in a good situation after Pearl Harbor, and they were, I guess, kind of in a rush now to build up and get ready for a fight against a tough and determined enemy, particularly as both British and American naval aviation at the time was drastically inferior to the Japanese era. Repulse love, hell yeah, Nova Crusader.
I don't, is this just me, guys? But I don't know, maybe this is just me, but I don't know, your mic is like suddenly cutting in and out. It's like really staticky all of a sudden, I don't know why.
Oh, how's my microphone, everybody in the chat? Do I sound okay, or is my microphone messing up?
Alright, it's better now, but it did that for like the last minute and a half, and then it cut out for about 5 seconds.
It could be Steam, probably. Steam can be funny.
I thought maybe it was... I thought it was maybe my headset, but on my headset's fine. Or maybe it's just me. I'm always having issues, man.
Yeah, you make a good point, Kingsman. It's like both sides of the divide. The Japanese as well also wargamed their defeat at Midway, and obviously they were ignored. The officers who called what would later happen at the Battle of Midway were dismissed as well. So it's funny how both sides called what was going to happen during the war.
I forget where I heard this, but so the Japanese eventually figured out that the United States could read the radio transmissions. Like they had like theorized that they could, but they weren't completely sure until like right before the Battle of Midway.
Mm-hmm.
Or was it the other way around? I forget. Maybe it was the other way around. But no, I think it was the other way. The United States thought the Japanese were listening in. And so they told Midway to send a radio transmission saying, oh, hey, we're having water troubles. And they would listen to the Japanese. And they're like, all right, the target so-and-so is having water troubles. And that's when the U.S. Navy found out that yep, the Japanese are listening into what we're saying now too. And I know I forget where I heard that story from. And then I looked into it, and I thought of that for some reason. I couldn't get my mind off that for the past 2 minutes.
So one consequence of the attack on Pearl Harbor, obviously, was the Nihao incident. And what the United States started doing is Japanese American residents and citizens were relocated to Japanese American internment camps within hours of the attack. Hundreds of Japanese American leaders were rounded up and taken to high security camps such as Sand Island in the mouth of Honolulu Harbor. They were taken to, God, these American names. I don't know why you name things the way they do. Kilauea military camp on Hawaii. I guess it's not American, I guess it's Hawaiian name. I think I said it right. Eventually, more than 110,000 Japanese Americans, mostly who lived on the West Coast, were forced into interior camps. But in Hawaii, where there are 150,000 Japanese Americans, which was a third of all Japanese Americans in the United States, only about 2,000 were interned there. So the reason why the Americans obviously interned Japanese American citizens is that they didn't know who was spies and who was sympathetic to the Japanese cause. They didn't want these people going back to Japan to potentially fight in its imperial forces. So yeah, they put them into camps, which is seen today obviously as one of the darkest and most shocking moments of US history.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, does that ever get brought up again, like in recent history? Like, do you ever bring up the internment of Japanese American citizens in US history? Do you learn it in school?
Let's see. It was mentioned, but we never really went in depth with it. And I mean, even when I was, let's see, so I know in the last few years of high school, the curriculums really started to kind of open up about it. But I mean, all throughout my younger school days, all the way up through high school, I mean, it was rarely mentioned, if at all. At least for where I went to school at, and I didn't really find out about it till probably I was in middle school. And shoot, even some of my teachers didn't know about it.
Yeah. What do you know? But just to go on a tangent about that, kind of, how is US history structured in the United States? Is it state by state different, or do you have like a federal, I guess, like teaching history?
It used to be state by state until Obama.
Oh, thanks, Obama.
So it used to be really state by state, because I remember. So I went to 3 different elementary schools.
Oh wow. Okay.
And in the first 2, and all 3 of them were in the same state.
Mm-hmm.
All right, but in the first 2, there would be a period of our history class that would be dedicated solely to the history of the state, if not the city or the county. And so I know all the way up until about 3rd to 4th grade is we'd get a couple every day. There'd be like a half hour, maybe 45 minutes of just some sort of teaching about your local area. But once it hit 4th grade, it was all standardized, and everyone would learn the same thing.
Oh, okay. No, that makes sense. That's very similar to us, I guess. Yeah, we have kind of like, when we learn history, we have like a local thing, like local history to our county, or guess what you would call state. And then we have like World War I and World War II and stuff. And we actually learn an awful lot about US history in the UK, funnily enough. I think we probably learn more about US social history in the UK than we learn about British social history, funnily enough. Like, we learn about the civil rights movement and all that shit as well in the UK.
I mean, it's you guys can focus in on a lot more specific stuff than I'd say the United States can, simply because it's the United States, so we have to pretty much go over everything over the past 250 years in detail, which means that nothing really gets covered in detail.
Yeah.
Because trying to go over everything in detail, guess what? You're gonna have to skip over a bunch of stuff. Like,
yeah, exactly.
There was a railroad strike, and I believe it was the 1870s, that I didn't learn about until after I got out of high school.
Oh, really? Okay. No, yeah, there's some more advanced stuff I didn't learn until I did it at college. But yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah, the states used to handle. The kingism. The states used to handle their own education systems till the Department of Education was created in the late 70s. Yeah, that sounds about right. But I mean, even with the early Department of Education for your younger years, you would still get a bit of like local teaching on your like city or area. But once I hit about 4th grade, anything about like your local area just stopped. It was all standardized. It was all like just about national stuff, and it was one of those things where I'm like, well, no, normally we'd at least because one of the things that happened with me is during the Obama kind of transition, I also went to a different school at that point. So when I went to my new school, I'm like, wait, what? No, where's our daily learning about our local area? And they're like, no, we don't do that anymore.
That's interesting. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't know necessarily if it was maybe it was something that just kind of I always see it seemed to have these things happen right in the perfect order where I'm not sure was this supposed to happen or was this a consequence of something greater or no what's going on, but I never really found out. All I know is suddenly there was local teaching and then there was not.
Yeah, I think history, particularly in I can't speak for the US obviously, but in the UK, maybe it's the same for the US, is it tends to be, I guess, kind of used by the government as a tool to instill, I think, a kind of like message or mentality in, obviously, children for them to grow up. I think that history in the UK, given what we focus on, is deliberately designed to, I guess, encourage us to not want to look back with pride at, you know, stuff like imperialism, colonialism. You know, we have a very martial history in the UK, right? So they tend to want to make it tend to, I guess, you know, enforce those lessons that what we were back in the day of empire was terrible, and to encourage, I guess, kind of like a more kind of multiculturalist, I guess, liberal mentality in children today. I tend to look at how history is taught in places like Russia and some places in Eastern Europe, and they kind of look back on, I guess, their earlier periods with a lot of pride. Particularly, they teach a lot about their military history and then use history as, I guess, as a kind of tool to encourage fiercely nationalistic sentiment in their populations.
Yes. So I'd say I went to school about the time where that transitioned from, you know, just simply learning about your nation's history to having messages put behind it. But I was lucky in the fact that even with the school books kind of having the sort of messaging in it, that all my history teachers were like, no, if you really want to learn, you have to look yourself. No, I can't tell you what to think, but I can point you in the right direction.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I know I've seen so many, I've heard so many stories. I've seen a few teachers who are very much, very behind the modern messaging behind some history lessons. But I guess I was really lucky with, especially one of my high school teachers. She was awesome. Even if she actually, she would challenge people to read Mein Kampf.
I've never actually read Mein Kampf.
Let's see, I was not able to because everyone kept taking it before I could.
I think it's illegal to read it here, I wonder.
I mean, you're in Europe, it probably is.
It probably is, yeah.
Well, no, my teacher, she put it on it wasn't on the chalkboard, it was on the whiteboard, but it was like that little railing where they put the markers or the chalk at. She's like, if anyone wants to read that, just let me know. And the first day she put it out, somebody came, I was like, hey, I want to try to read this. Apparently nobody made it past like 15 pages. But every time I went to ask for it, she's like, nope, this person has it, or this person has it, this person has it. I'm like, oh my god.
15 pages.
She only had one book, and there were like 5 different classes. So, and I was always in like the later part of the day when I get to her class, so there would be like 3 classes in front of me who would be able to grab it if they wanted.
Yeah, I probably imagine it's a very boring book. I don't know. I don't think anybody, very many people in today's society would certainly be able to read Mein Kampf. They don't have the attention span for it.
I don't know.
Can we get a TikTok of Mein Kampf? We need a TikTok series on Mein Kampf is what we need. Then we'll get kids to read it, right?
Well, I mean, so there's been a recent push by the U.S. government to ban TikTok because people have been translating funny H-Man's speeches.
Yeah. We need a cat boy. We need a cat boy twink reading Mein Kampf. Then people will understand that people will read it. Yeah.
Oh, God.
Need him doing the, that dance, that famous anime dance from like a decade ago, the something dance. Fuck, needs to be doing that.
I don't even remember what it was.
Get on it, Maulington. I'm not doing a fucking catboy dance of my cap. I get arrested. Yeah, I was actually considering it for a split second there, and I was like, no, hang on a minute, I'll probably get arrested. Anyway, so what are the strategic implications of Pearl Harbor? So, Imperial Japanese Rear Admiral Chuchi Hara summed up the Japanese result by saying, "We won a great tactical victory at Pearl Harbor, and thereby lost the war." So, whilst the attack accomplished its intended objective, it turned out to be very largely unnecessary because, unbeknownst to Yamamoto, who conceived the original plan, the United States Navy had actually decided back in 1935 to abandon charging across the Pacific towards the Philippines in response to an outbreak of war against the Japanese, in keeping with the evolution of Plan Orange, which was the plan preparing for a potential attack on the Japanese in case of war. So the US instead opted for Plan Dog in 1940, which instead emphasized keeping the Imperial Japanese Navy out of the Eastern Pacific and away from the shipping lanes to Australia, whilst the United States concentrated on defeating Nazi Germany, which is exactly what Hitler wanted as well. Hitler very much wanted the US to focus on Germany first, and then once Europe was secured, then we take a look at the Imperial Japanese, which is obviously naturally Europeans would advocate for that because Japan is obviously a big threat to the United Kingdom, particularly because of India. But for the most part, we could afford to lose India. We can't obviously afford to lose the war in Europe because obviously that's where the home is, right? So because the US carrier fleet wasn't there at the time, obviously the American carriers were untouched, and they were able to carry out offensive operations, which otherwise they would have been out of action for probably several months to a year. Maybe some of them were sunk, and that would have a knock-on effect of causing perhaps the future battles at Midway, Guadalcanal, the Marshall Islands would be even more of a disaster than they were at the time already. So after the battle, 6 of the 8 battleships were repaired and returned to service quite quickly, but they were mostly refitted US World War I era dreadnoughts, so they were relatively low speed and had very high fuel consumption given how far they could travel for their deployment. So most of them actually ended up serving mainly as in-shore bombardment roles, with their only major action being the Battle of Surigao Strait in October of 1944, which by that point Japan was massively on the back foot. So one of the major flaws in Japanese strategic thinking was the belief that the ultimate Pacific battle would be fought by battleships as well, which was keeping in their belief in the doctrine of Alfred Mahan. And so because of that, Yamamoto hoarded battleships for a decisive battle that never happened. What you'll see throughout the next several months of the Pacific Front is that the Japanese are very hesitant to deploy the battleships for a decisive battle because they are terrified of losing them to US carriers. Eventually they want to get rid of those US carriers before they commit to that decisive battle with their battleships.
And that's one of the things is, I mean, like, the Japanese, they sent 6 carriers, and sure, they didn't do probably the damage they wanted to at Pearl Harbor, but they showed that the aircraft carrier trumps the battleship any day of the week, any hour of the day.
Mm-hmm.
Like if it was a battle between a battleship and a carrier, the carrier is gonna win all day, every day, which is why, when the Japanese were like, all right, well, we failed to knock out the primary objective, which was the carriers, we can no longer commit to any sort of decisive battle anymore, because those threats are too much of a threat to risk any of our major capital ships.
Yeah, that's right. Actually, funny enough, the British Empire actually lost a carrier to a battleship, funny enough, but then that's a rare exception where not an unescorted carrier as such, but a very poorly escorted carrier was found by coincidence by, I can't remember which battleship did it. I'm wondering if it was the Tirpitz might have found it, maybe? But yeah, one of the German battleships actually sunk a British carrier that didn't have any of its planes on board at the time and was lightly protected. So yeah, as long as the carrier has an escort and it has fighters good to go, it will always defeat a battleship. The Ark Royal. It was the Ark Royal. That's it, Felix. Thank you. Yeah. Hey, Soren, how's it going, buddy? I'm pretty sure it was the Ark Royal Felix, you're right.
Yeah, see, I believe that was the British carrier that was lost. Weren't they trying to hunt for Bismarck, or was Bismarck already sunk? I forget, but I think Bismarck had been sunk, and then something else sunk the Ark Royal, and they're like, well, guess that one's gone forever.
Yeah, I think it was Tirpitz who sunk the Ark Royal. I think it was. I have to look that up again now, I've forgotten. Didn't they beach their largest battleship for Fight of the Bombers? Yeah, that's right, Goliath. So towards the end of the war, they beached the battleship Yamato, and they basically used it as a giant anti-air platform, because the Yamato had a special airburst ammunition type that could actually hit planes, but it was an experimental shell, so it did a very poor job. Actually, it had very poor accuracy at hitting aircraft.
So the Yamato, it was in its first major combat deployment, because I mean technically Yamato was present at Midway, but it was held such in reserve that it basically wasn't there. But the Japanese still listed there because they're like, well, we have it here, it's just not here. It's waiting outside. But the first combat deployment it was supposed to go to, I think it was supposed to go to Okinawa, beach itself like in front of the invasion fleet, and just hammer away at aircraft and ships and whatever not. But it never made it because a sub had found the Yamato en route, and a task force had been sent to destroy it. Mm-hmm. And the Yamato did not stand a chance against American carrier-based planes.
That's right. Fire control outdated and crew unskilled due to losses. Sorry, I'm just responding here to Thorin. Yeah, so I mean that's basically that basically covers Pearl Harbor in its entirety. It's one major it was over quickly, so it's a small flashpoint, but it's also a very large flashpoint due to the impact it would have on the war. Unfortunately, there was when we look at the casualties, it's quite horrifying to think about. Obviously, many of those US battleships ended up being the big steel coffins for many sailors. Unfortunately, those who were not lucky enough to have been killed by the torpedoes or the dive bombing would drown whilst trapped inside those battleships, where they would either drown or they'd run out of oxygen. And they did try to make a rescue effort to get in there and rescue the crew, but unfortunately many of them did have to were left to a terrible watery fate, which is awful to think about, right? But a lot of people, I think, kind of at the time thought about volunteering for the Navy to avoid service as an infantryman in the Army or the Marines, but the sailors didn't have a good time of things during World War II as well. Many sailors were lost, suffered horrible deaths to third-degree burning as well towards the end of the war, when the Japanese began kamikaze attacks and crashed their airplanes onto the decks. So yeah, not a nice way to go, unfortunately.
And then there was also the kind of not quite about the injuries you can sustain while serving on those ships if they get attacked, but families would lose like entire generations because they would all be serving on the same ship. That's why the I forget what it's officially called, but it's like the Solomon's rule, because I forget if it was, I think it was in 42, the Sullivan Act, yeah, because there was a family that had 5 children. That's right. All 5 of these kids were serving on the same ship that was destroyed. All 5 of them were killed. And after that, the U.S. Military is like, all right, we cannot have family members serving in the same unit, in the same theater, or, I mean, I believe at this point, it's if you have 2 family members in the military, only one of them can be deployed to combat.
Oh, is it that extreme? I thought it was they couldn't be deployed in the same service or the same theater or something. Interesting. Okay.
I believe at this point, because I remember hearing a story from Vietnam about this, where there was a young infantry lieutenant who had volunteered to be in Vietnam, and he had a slightly younger brother who was still of drafting age, who had been drafted and was supposed to be sent to Vietnam. But they're like, wait, his brother is already in Vietnam, so we can't send him to Vietnam. So the parents wrote and was like, look, if he goes to Vietnam, he will die. We need you to volunteer for one more tour so he doesn't go to Vietnam. And so he did. So the military couldn't send the younger brother to Vietnam until I believe the lieutenant received either some sort of like assignment change or something, but the younger brother kept getting into trouble. They're like, all right, if you get into trouble one more time, you're getting sent to Vietnam. And so they sent the younger brother to Vietnam and yanked the lieutenant out of Vietnam, simply because the younger brother just kept getting in trouble. I'm not sure if the younger brother ended up being a casualty or not, but I did hear that story once. I forget exact details of it. That's the gist of how that went. And so the military today, at least in the United States, it's they try to only keep one family member in combat. Well, not keep one family member in combat, but they keep one family member out of combat at the minimum.
Yeah, no, absolutely. There were quite a few famous people and former and future politicians who served in the Navy in World War II, wasn't there? I'm trying to think, was it Kennedy? No, was it
JFK? Yep,
it was Kennedy.
He was a PT boat crewman in the Pacific Theater during World War II.
Yeah. God, how old is he then?
There's actually a movie. There's a movie based on it called PT 109.
Oh, I didn't mean the movie. Yeah, you Americans really like Kennedy. I don't know. What's the opinion of President Kennedy these days? I know he was loved for a long time. I don't know if that's changed before the Navy became gay.
I don't think that's really changed. But he's become more of like a I don't want to say Marty or anything, but the surrounding Kennedy's death, he's definitely become the poster of government corruption, not because Kennedy was corrupt, but because of how the government got rid of him.
God, he got a nasty headshot. God damn. He had aim hacks on whoever did it. You know, I was watching Armageddon actually like the other day, and I hadn't seen it in like 20 years or something, and they made a good joke in there when they're like writing their wills and they make their last request to the government in exchange for doing that job. Like one of the requests is, can you tell us who really shot Kennedy? Wish they'd make jokes like that again. That was quite funny.
JFK takes a nap in a car at Dallas, Texas. Modern News reporting. Yeah, that's how they would report it. Honestly.
Yeah.
I would not doubt that in the slightest.
Nothing bad ever happens to Kennedys.
Ever happens to the Kennedys. Ah!
We will go to the moon and do the other thing, not because it's easy, but because they are hot.
We do not post controversial memes because they are good, or because they are good. We do it because they are funny.
I did not have sexual relations with that woman. I know that's Clinton, but I just love like I think every US president, at least since Theodore Roosevelt, has had like a great one-liner. Or there's like some kind of meme about their voice, right? Like you got Richard Nixon's, I am not a crook, I am not a criminal, I am Richard Nixon.
And one of my favorite things in a TV show is the presidential head jars in Futurama.
Yeah, exactly. I love that so much.
Oh my god, I absolutely. Did you know Grover Cleveland? I forget what he has two. He's kind of like Trump, where he's doesn't have back-to-back terms. So he actually has two heads because he had two non-linear terms.
Oh, really? Interesting. I didn't know that.
I thought that was a neat little fact about Futurama, is they gave Grover Cleveland two jars because he had two non-sequential terms. as president.
Oh, that's clever. Yeah, that's clever. Yeah, we don't like Kennedy much in the UK because of his whole support of the IRA thing. Yeah, so he's not a big we're not a big fan of him here.
See, I think US wise, I think probably the worst thing Kennedy, I mean, well, okay, second worst thing Kennedy had happened to him was the Bay of Pigs invasion just kind of exploding in his face.
Mm-hmm.
Because, I mean, there was the whole Cuba thing and the Cuban Missile Crisis
Cuban
and all
Missile
that.
Crisis, Bay of Pigs, yeah.
But, so, yeah, when Bay of Pigs failed, that kind of blew up in Kennedy's face. But other than that, everyone, I'd say pretty much everyone liked him. He was not, I don't want to say he was not controversial, but he was very, I think he was a very kind of uniting power internally, but externally, he was very, very controversial.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, yeah, I guess kind of Kennedy, perhaps you could say, overreacted to his defeats with the, embarrassments with the Cuban Missile Crisis and the Bay of Pigs thing, that he kind of went hard into Vietnam to try and save face, as he thought Vietnam would be a quick win. Unfortunately, Vietnam was in fact not an in-and-out 20-minute adventure.
Yep, that's right. JFK was killed by Alex Mason. But actually, so not many people know this, but we had been involved in Vietnam since World War II.
Right. What
so
do the numbers mean, Mason? Sorry, go on.
So before the CIA was created, there was the OSS, the Office of Strategic Services, which was basically like the precursor to the CIA. And OSS agents had been deployed to Vietnam to assist Ho Chi Minh in driving out Japanese forces from the country. So we had been in Vietnam literally since World War II. And so I don't really think like any president would have been able to keep us out of Vietnam. It was one of those things that we had become so entwined with for so long at that point that like there was only one real like course of action that any U.S. government president could take, and that was just increase escalation until eventually the country got burnt out from it.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure about that one. I can't see many Americans being behind the idea of getting involved in Vietnam to help the French protect a colony there. It's a case of as well during that time period. Yeah, I guess the problem is about the whole whether another president would have gotten the United States involved in the Vietnam War is we have to remember that during the 1950s, the US station chief to Laos, funnily enough, perfectly predicted exactly what would happen in the Vietnam War, and his advice to the president and to Congress was for the United States to not support the French, and they should not get involved in the war in Vietnam. But eventually, due to the prevalence of the war hawks in US politics at the time, funnily enough, that same station chief changed his tune a couple years after his initial assessment. He was probably threatened politically by the party at the time to change his outlook so that the American people would get behind an intervention in Vietnam. I think the problem is that McCarthyism was in quite high spirits at the time, and it's like the domino effect that was spoken about at the time, regardless as to whether or not it was a French colony or what interests for Americans were there. The people like the Americans just did not want the spread of communism at any point. But at the same time, again, the Americans are quite an isolationist people. You're a very anti-imperialist, and again, it's like, well, why the fuck should American boys go to fight for like a former French colony, right?
So here's some weird, complicated things about that time period. So Eisenhower didn't want to support the French in Indochina, right?
Yeah.
He's like, no, it's France. They can take care of it themselves. But Eisenhower was also the proponent of domino theory, where if one country falls, another country will fall to communism, and then another, then another, then another.
Yeah.
Like, and it was, China fell, then Vietnam will, then Laos will, then Cambodia, then Thailand, then India, then all of Africa, then all of Europe, and then the United States.
Mm-hmm.
The last four was a bit of an exaggeration, but you get the point.
Yeah. Fortunately, communism is shit, and it didn't happen.
But I mean, the way it was is like, all right, so we had the OSS and CAA never really left Vietnam, even after World War II. So we didn't have, and no, mind you, the CAA is not a military entity. It's just kind of its own little government thing with a bunch of guns that can requisition any military equipment they want at any given time. They never really left Vietnam totally. They downsized their operations and the scale they had from World War II, but they never totally left. When the French asked for our help, Eisenhower's like, no, you guys are France, you guys should be able to handle it. And mind you, this is all going to be a very, very big oversimplification of it. Call me oversimplified. And so once France fell and Vietnam was split between North and South, that's when the United States kind of started looking. They're like, all right, well, now they're divided between communists and not communists, and things kind of escalated from there. And there's this short period of time where the French actually handed over military affairs to the British, who then handed it over to the United States. Because there was for a short period of time where France was leaving and British units were sent in, and after it wasn't many casualties, but after a few dozen killed in action casualties suffered by the British is like, all right, USA, this is your deal. We're not doing this again. You deal with it or don't deal with it. And that's what kind of ended up happening. And then we had from basically 1955 to 1975 major U.S. involvement.
Yeah, obviously you've been supporting the French for quite a long time as well. The French were basically using American Kevlar, American flat jackets, American boots, American food. You supported the
American tanks.
Yeah. They were using the Chaffee, right, and Pattons, I think. And
actually, Chaffees and Shermans.
Shermans, that's it. Yeah, Pattons was a bit too much for the French at the time. You needed your Patton tanks. Yeah,
Pattons were a bit much for the French still.
Bit much for the French
were being
at the time.
Reserved for Europe.
Yeah. And obviously you had the disaster at Dien Bien Phu. You had the disaster of the South Vietnamese army as well. Did absolutely terrible in its conflict against the Northerners. It was very corrupt and ineffectual. They were using US helicopters as well. So unfortunately, it's probably the first sign that spending several years in a very highly unstable country who's undergoing a sort of civil war of sorts of ideology is a bad idea, because you later see it in places like Afghanistan, right? It's like we spent God knows how much time, money and effort in Afghanistan, and we spent all that time training the locals to defend and look after themselves, and then as soon as the competent Western military forces leave, they fold like a pack of croutons in a matter of days, basically.
So the problem with the Afghanistan, the Afghan National Army was they were better paid by the Taliban than they were by the United States.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
I don't know.
That, yeah.
So one thing I heard was, so when it came to let's say, I'm not going to explain how to create the improvised boom devices, but one of the things that they would do is they would pay someone $3,000 to dig a hole. All right, guy digs a hole, he gets his money, he goes. They pay someone else to like prep the hole for the big boom device. All right, they pay him $2,500 or whatever. Then they pay somebody else to build the device. And then they pay somebody else to lay the device. So everyone's getting these thousands of dollars, while the US would pay somebody like $500 a month to be a full-time military personnel. And it was one of those things where they're like, no, the guys you people are fighting are paying us better than you are. Which is one of the reasons why the Afghan National Army failed. Is because they were more motivated to turn everything over to the people who are paying them better. Now, when it comes to Iraq, we were actually a bit more successful with Iraq than we were with Afghanistan. There's a few reasons for it. I couldn't really tell you any specific reason, but while they're nowhere near the level that U.S. forces are, they were significantly better than comparing the Iraqi forces compared to the Afghan National Army forces.
Yeah. I mean, the other major problem that the Afghan National Army had is it's just a very corrupt, poorly motivated force. It doesn't help when a lot of the military guys are from many of like the same local, I guess, kind of, I don't know what they call them, like villages or towns, like those little villages that they have, like the same kind of tribes that obviously are probably under Taliban occupation themselves. So naturally you're going to have a lot of green on blue incidents and people who just don't want to fight when the Taliban are coming for them. Yeah,
and I know one other thing that I saw this video. I'm not sure if it's a video that's made its round really well, but there's one video where a U.S. Army sergeant is trying to teach one of these Afghan National Army guys how to do jumping jacks. And so like the sergeant is doing this for like several minutes with this guy, and the Afghan National Army dude's just like dancing in place trying to do what he's doing. And eventually the sergeant just gives up. He's like, all right, I can't teach this guy.
Yeah.
And it's one of those videos that's like, this is one of the, I mean, it's not the reason why the Afghan National Army failed, but I mean, you look at them and you wonder, I mean, we're funding these guys and they can't even do a simple exercise. Well, what did we expect to happen when we finally handed control over to them when they can't do a simple jump?
Yeah, it's I just don't know. I don't know if the military themselves behind it ever thought that it was going to work out, or they were just like strong-armed into it by politicians. But yeah, it's tricky, isn't it? Because the whole reason why you have a civilian administration of the military is because it prevents stuff like juntas, and it prevents like arrogance, and it prevents like the military from essentially having too much power over foreign policy and potentially overthrowing the civilian administration. But then the issue is that you've got these people who have virtually zero understanding of, I guess, like foreign affairs or military matters dictating policy. So when you've got people who are fucking idiots in charge of decision making, it becomes very dangerous. Oh wow, thank you very much for the 5 gifted memberships as always, buddy. How's it going, my friends? Good to see you. Thank you.
Let's see. So, I had a thought, but I just forgot what the thought was. I read Pavlo John's comment. Right now, the National Resistance Front is fighting the Taliban, and so is ISKP. And yeah, Afghanistan is a huge mess right now. And I watched a video on this recently. I'll probably have to send it to you later if I can find it again. But basically, the Taliban is complaining about having to run the country just like U.S. soldiers were not even 10 years ago. Apparently, according to what the video said, the complaints are almost like word for word the same thing. The people the Taliban are trying to teach to run the day-to-day things don't know what they're doing. Nobody wants to fight, and they got 2 other factions, and mind you, these 2 other factions are also fighting each other as well.
Yeah.
So it's like, not now that the Taliban has control of the major cities like the United States did, but has no control over the countryside anymore.
Yeah. God,
it is amazing. The one thing the Taliban has going for them is they got the really cool rollerblade battalions.
Rollerblade battalions.
So they got like around Kabul, they'll have a Humvee with like 7 or 8 guys holding onto their M4s or AKs, and they got rollerblades, so they're just like kind of holding onto the side of the Humvee,
Oh my
rollerblading
god,
down the
really?
road, and it looks awesome. It looks so cool, but there's zero practicality to it.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. Rollerblades, interesting. We need to start rolling
So,
out
like-
infantrymen with rollerbladed footwear.
So like there's the one video I saw where the dude is literally like, so the Humvee is driving down the road, right? And one of the rollerblade soldiers is literally, he's just kind of like holding on, he's just like leaning up against the Humvee like it's stopped, but it's pushing him along because he's got the rollerblades on. And somebody's like recording it, so he does like, he like gets in front of the Humvee, does some not acrobatic stuff, but he does some like tricks and stuff like that, and then just slowly rolls back to the Humvee and just leans up against it like as if it was standing still, and just gets pushed along. It is a pretty cool video, but again, it has zero practicality.
Yeah. I guess, yeah. What's your favorite naval? What's your favorite aircraft from World War II? Actually, let's not focus on naval. What's just your favorite aircraft from World War II?
Let's see. So I got one for the European theater and one for the Pacific theater. For the Pacific theater,
Yeah, okay,
it'll be the F6F, and for Europe, it will be the P-51.
Yeah, I think every red-blooded, is it blue-blooded American, or do you say red-blooded or blue-blooded for patriotism over there?
Red-blooded.
Red-blooded. Every red-blooded American loves a Mustang. All right.
Yeah.
everybody loves a Mustang. I guess for me, for the Pacific theater, it would probably have to be the Hellcat as well. And for the European front, it would be, I guess, just a Griffin Spitfire. No, a Typhoon, a Mark V Typhoon, I'd say.
I was gonna guess the Spitfire for Europe.
No, I'm not. Everybody like England. Everybody loves like the Spitfire because it's like such an iconic plane. It's like the Tiger effect, right? Everybody loves the Spitfire in the UK because it's basically the only fucking aircraft they know about. But yeah, I'm more of a fan of like the Typhoon and the Tempest. I much prefer those kinds of aircraft. Yeah, and I like my big heavy boys with the heavy armaments. For fighter bombers.
That makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Oh, the P-38 Twin Lightning. What an interesting aircraft design that is, right? With the two tails that are kind of...
no, the P-38, that's not the Twin Lightning. That's the F-82. That's the...
Oh, okay.
Well, it's the P-38 Lightning.
It's the P-38 got the big cannon in the nose. Is that the one I'm thinking of?
The P-38 has the cannon and the, like, 4 Browning machine guns in the center of the nose. The... F-82 Twin Mustang is the one that has like the 2 Mustangs kind of like welded together, and it can get like its 13 50 cal machine gun.
Ooh, nice.
Machine gun pod, and it is so ridiculous to use in War Thunder. I have it, and I have the gun pod for it, and it is amazing in head-ons, but it's one of those things where you're gonna head on one person, and then you have to go back to base, or else you're gonna die.
Yeah, didn't you give the Russians their Cobras as well?
So we did give the Russians Cobras.
Yeah, God. Can you buy like old decommissioned World War II planes in the US? Could you buy like an Air Cobra?
I mean, they're expensive as hell, but yes, you can. There's
actually,
so a lot of the air shows that you hear about in the United States that have like the old fighters and B-29s and B-17s, those are all privately owned.
Oh, nice. Even the B-52s.
No, not B-52s, the B-29s.
Oh, B-29s. Okay.
I don't think anyone privately owns a B-52.
God, I know. Imagine privately owning a B-52. Imagine what you could use that for.
That would be insane.
That would be insane, wouldn't it? Fucking hell. You could do an awful lot of farming with a B-52. I literally don't understand what you guys are saying. Hey, Furlough.
This kind of brings us to our other topic of military aviation.
Yeah, we like military planes. We like the airbirds that go. War Thunder. You mean that game where you decorate your tanks with ducky mirrors? That's exactly the game we're talking about. Yeah, that's the one.
That is the exact game. I still need to get some.
Yeah, I've got loads of anime stickers as well. Some sort of gay furry discussion. What's your favorite tank of World War II?
Favorite tank? That's a good question, because I have quite a few of them. So, I really like the Sherman in the Pacific Theater. I really like the T-34-85 on the Eastern Front. And, I mean, everyone's got to be a fan of the Tiger, man. Like, if you're not a fan of the Tiger, there's something wrong with you.
I don't like the Tiger. It's a box with a big. It's a box with a big gun and shit oil and transmission issues.
I mean, yeah, but it has such a reputation that literally everything is a Tiger. Panzer 3018, nope, that's a Tiger. The cardboard box, nope, that's a Tiger.
Yeah, I like the Panther. The Panther's a cool tank, but again, the Panther has the problems of over-engineering. Cool. I guess Panzer IV-H is a good tank.
Over-engineering is the mainstay of Germany. Asking a German to not over-engineer someone is like asking a cat to go to the moon.
Yeah, I mean, it's just
never gonna happen.
Let's build mega heavy tanks that take an awful lot of time to make, and they're super expensive, especially in terms of the amount of steel they require. In a war where we are completely dominated in the air, and the enemy forces have the latest in rocket technology and bombs, and they also have massive amounts of battleships that can absolutely obliterate all our armor before they even get into position. That sounds like a good idea. The Sherman is a better tank. I agree, Felix. Sherman tank is a bloody good tank.
See, I do have an appreciation for the Sherman. Excuse me. Actually, there was a period of time in War Thunder where I would only use the Shermans because they were really, really good all of a sudden, and then suddenly War Thunder's like, yeah, they're not good anymore. Sorry. And I haven't probably touched them in almost 2 years.
Yeah, War Thunder, is it still got massive Russian bias, War Thunder?
So, there used to be a tank, the T-34-100, that would literally one-shot anything and everything it came across. And so, I watched a few YouTube videos on it, and I'm like, ooh, I'm gonna get this tank. So, I literally spent $60 to buy this tank. And I played it. And for the first 2 days, it was phenomenal. I absolutely loved it. And then War Thunder updated. And you know what happened?
What happened?
It became worthless.
It became the old Gaijin tactic. Yep.
It got up-tiered, and the shells that it fired got nerfed.
You know, that should be like you should be able to like sue or get your money back whenever they do that shit, because you bought a product with a certain capability, right, at the time, and then they go and fuck with it. That's basically that's basically fiddling with something that you bought. They've ruined it, right? You should be able to get your money back.
They do that. They do that with all the tanks all the time. I think they've kind of fixed it now, because I haven't played War Thunder recently, but last time I played it, the T-34-100 was okay. But, I mean, there was a period of time where you would not be able to shoot through the front plate of a freaking Panzer IV if you were right in front of it. Like, that's how badly they nerf some of these tanks sometimes. They'll take an 8.0 tank, they'll nerf it to the point where you can't shoot a Tier 3 vehicle, and they'll just look at you and you explode.
Oh god, yeah. I never got into World of Tanks, because I always found that the +2 -2 tier system in World of Tanks, and how many of the tanks are, particularly in like the mid-range, you've got like these tanks that can never penetrate anyone from anywhere, and it's really unfun to play.
See that War Thunder's not that bad, because I mean, if you still flank around someone, you could still kill him with probably just about any tank. Actually, it was kind of fun. So my stepdad challenged me to a 1v1 in War Thunder once, and so he had completely unlocked the entire German tree, and at this point, this is at the point where the Leopard A1A1 was the top tier German vehicle. That was the highest you could go.
Mm-hmm.
And I would use this little dinky BT7 from the Soviet tech tree and constantly kill him with it. It was hilarious. And it wasn't that the Leopard was bad. I mean, the machine guns could probably kill me on that thing. It was just that I would be cheeky about everything I did, and it was hilarious.
Yeah. Do you play World of Warships?
I need to reinstall World of Warships.
I really like World of Warships, actually. I haven't played it in many years because the player base pisses me off because they're terrible, but it's a really fun game. Well, it was a very fun game.
It's really funny. So, a lot of people who hate World of Tanks will play World of Warships, and it's literally the same thing. In terms of like how the health works. Because World of Warships has health bars. World of Tanks has health bars. But World of Tanks, I mean, there's a lot of people who do like it, but a lot of people who hate World of Tanks will still play World of Warships, and they'll go, yep, I hate World of Tanks for this, but World of Warships, nah, that one's really good. I like that one.
Yeah, World of Warships is much fairer for people. It's much fairer for like the tier system as well, because if you have a ship that can't hit anything, like can't penetrate with AP, then you can still just HE spam shit. You've still potentially got torpedoes. Whereas with World of Tanks, what kind of like threw me off of World of Tanks is I tried to do the British like heavy tank line, and the problem is that when you get to the Churchill Mark 7, you've got like three very long tiers where you've got an extremely slow big tank that can't penetrate anything from the front or the sides, and it's just the best you can hope for each game is to get one penetrating hit before dying, and it's just really a really miserable experience.
Yeah. War Thunder, well, I have my gripes with War Thunder, but I think War Thunder is much, much better than World of Tanks.
Yeah, so I definitely agree with that. War Thunder is a much better game than World of Tanks. So you have me there, absolutely.
And actually, so I've been playing War Thunder. Well, I've been playing War Thunder a lot less recently, but I first opened up my War Thunder account in 2016, I want to say, and I have yet to unlock a full tech tree.
Yeah, I haven't unlocked a full tech tree either, but then, yeah, I guess it's like the problem is with War Thunder is how long the progression takes. You'll never be able to, I don't know, fucking unlock an entire tree before they extend it with more stuff. I started playing War Thunder when they didn't even have like Cold War era stuff, let alone they've got like F-15s and 16s these days, don't they, or something?
Let's see. Actually, they just I don't want to say unlocked or unleashed, but they just brought the F-117 into the game.
Okay, yeah. I love the Viper. It's such a sexy aircraft. Yeah.
Let's see. They have I know they do have the F-16s. They have I think like MiG-29s. Not sure what Chinese jets they have, but I'm sure they have something. But they're definitely pushing the modern era. That's for sure.
Yeah, they definitely are. Do you know what Broken Arrow is? Have you seen the game Broken Arrow? That looks really fun.
I have not seen that one.
Have you ever played Warner? You ever played like the war games?
No, I don't think so.
You might enjoy them. They're really, I guess I'd say they're the next evolution if you're a Command & Conquer enjoyer. They're really difficult games. Okay. They've got a really steep learning curve, but once you get into it, it's really fun. It's like a much more realistic, more tactical take on an RTS genre. Yeah.
I play Men of War, Assault Squad 2 sometimes, which is it can be fun. But,
I've got that. That is a very fun game. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like playing the editor mode, just because I like building my own maps and making my own battles.
There's some mods as well to like make it Star Wars or Warhammer 40k or something, which is fucking hardcore. That's kind of why I bought it.
So one of the mods that I absolutely loved when it worked was I forget what it was called, but basically it would turn everything into modern day. So it'd give you modern US, it'd give you, France, Germany, Belgium, UN, all the different organizations that we've been to battle with over the last few years. I'm trying to be careful of my words so we don't get taken off YouTube.
Do it, pussy.
Nah. But all the different groups that we've fought over the years, cause there's a few random African nations in it too. I forget what the damn mod was called. It was something 4.4, and well, they updated Men of War, and the mod was now out of date. The problem was the people who were working on this mod stopped working on it, so they're like, yep, next time the game updates, it's game over for all of you, good luck. So that's kind of upset me, but the Rob's Realism mod has been a mainstay, which I'm very glad about, because I have a bunch of custom units on there that I really don't want to lose.
Yeah, I can imagine. Those are some pretty important units. Hey, what's the cruise missile? What's your cruise missiles called in the United States? What's the name for them?
Tomahawks.
They're called Tomahawks as well. What? Don't you have a kind of cruise missile that's delivered through aircraft? What's that one called?
I don't know. I don't know that one.
The reason I ask is because in Broken Arrow, it's a kind of game where you can drop tactical nukes in the game, which is really cool. You can drop tactical cruise missiles and the ALCM. I think that might be it, actually. Yeah, we should play Broken Arrow sometime together. That'd be really fun. Yeah. Literally air-launched cruise missile. That's a very Teutonic naming convention to give your cruise missile. It sounds very German. There must have been like a German-American citizen who was responsible for naming that one.
I mean, our missile systems are called the well, actually, a lot of places missile systems are called the MLRS, which is literally Multiple Launch Rocket System.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's just modern naming in a nutshell.
Yeah. What's it called? Is it PivDav? That you have LAVs that have like an anti-air, anti-ballistic missile suite, and aren't they called like PivDavs or PivAds or something?
I'll have to look into that. I'm not sure. You know who you could probably ask about it? The Chieftain.
Yeah. Oh, you know what? It'd be great to get a collab going with the Chieftain, actually, wouldn't it?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
Isn't he Irish? Is he like actually an Irish person who served in the U.S. Army?
Yeah,
right?
no, so he was born in Ireland and he moved to the United States, and then he became an armor officer, and now I believe he's trying to become a full bird colonel.
Oh, is he still serving?
Yeah.
Oh, I had no idea he was still serving.
Yeah, no, he's still. I don't know if it's considered active duty or not, but no, he's in like the higher officer ranks.
Oh wow, I didn't know he was still serving.
He's a lieutenant colonel right now, so he has to get like an additional college degree and then do a bunch of military things before he can get promoted to colonel, and then he has to get an assignment. For colonel.
In the reserves, that makes sense, because I was going to say he's a bit old to be a lieutenant colonel, but if he's in the reserves, I guess that kind of makes sense.
I mean, you look at how old our generals are. I mean, he's pretty young for an officer that high up.
Yeah, I guess so. We actually get promoted quite young in the British Army, all things considered, relative to the US Army, I guess. I guess it kind of throws off my kind of like age expectation of rank.
Yeah. Because pretty much for the U.S. military, anything above the rank of captain is almost guaranteed to be a desk position. Yeah,
that's pretty much our experience here as well in most cases, particularly if you work in, particularly if you're in an aviation role. Yeah,
aviation's technically a desk job to begin with. I mean, you're the only difference is for aviation is your desk is the cockpit.
Yeah, I guess so. I was about to say, yeah. I guess a cockpit is a turret type kind of thing, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, correct me if I'm wrong now. Actually, my old man memory's failing me again. Didn't you serve as well?
Let's see. I went to basic training. I could not pass a 2-mile run,
Oh yeah,
and
that was it.
after my, let's see, how to put it, my unpleasurable experience at basic training, and it wasn't even the training itself. It was just how everyone else was acting. I'm like, yeah, I'm just gonna go home.
Yeah, where did you what was it, Fort Benning?
No, I went to Fort Jackson.
Oh, Fort Jackson. Yeah, it's Army, right?
Yeah, it was for the Army. What I was originally planning to do was I was gonna go into the Army, do a construction job, then go to college so I could become an armor officer.
Collecting Jackson. Oh, really? Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was the original training. Or that was the original plan, but after my experience at Fort Jackson, here's the thing: I really enjoyed the actual training part. Right?
Mm-hmm.
I really did enjoy it. I thought it was literally just summer camp with a rifle.
Right.
Like that's what I thought it was. I enjoyed the ruck marches. I enjoyed the obstacle courses. I enjoyed pretty much all of, like, the rifle shooting. I enjoyed all of it. Loved grenade throwing. I loved doing Nick. I loved doing the field exercises. The problems I had at Jackson wasn't so much the training itself. It was my company and my platoon.
Yeah.
Because my company and my platoon just kind of turned me off to the whole military service based on how, like, the rest of them were acting, and I'm like, this is not for me. This is not the Army I volunteered for.
Yeah, I guess yeah, what were the other recruits like?
They were just there for a paycheck and for the government to pay everything.
Yeah, no, the reason
they didn't care.
Yeah, it's similar to my own experience. It depends on the service here in the UK, but definitely a lot of people like to join the Royal Navy and the Royal Air Force in particular, basically just because they don't know what else to do with their lives. They just want like a paycheck and just want to do something, I guess, rather than be unemployed.
Well, see, it wasn't that a lot of these guys just didn't want to sit around. Their whole thought process was, all right, no, I'm gonna join. I'm gonna do my 4 to 6 years, and then the government's gonna pay for everything for me for the rest of my life.
Yeah, funny enough, that kind of echoes kind of like my own experience, I guess. It's like, originally I wanted to join up as an armored infantry officer, and then eventually, like, kind of very last minute, I decided to switch to engineering because I had like a last minute, I guess, kind of attack of reason where I thought, well, but if I really don't like a military career, then I'll be stuffed, right? Like, if I want to leave, because I won't have any particular skilled trade training. So I went engineering instead, so that I could at least leave. I could at least leave with an engineering degree and then do that into the civilian sector. But then at the same time, I guess that kind of guaranteed that I'd eventually leave due to, I guess, just essentially not enjoying the position I was in, basically. Which is eventually what happens. That and other reasons as well, right? I think when people talk about, I don't know, this is a spicy tangent to get into, but you see people today, particularly in the UK and in the US, but in the UK in particular, people are always talking about how they're really struggling with recruitment and retention, and they say it's because millennials and I guess now Zoomers are like lazy, they're out of shape, they're fat, and they're mentally ill, and they don't and they can't serve, and they don't love their country. And it's like, well, yeah, the problem is that when you've spent the last 16, 18 years hating on young white men in particular, been enforcing ideas in school and in education about how the United States, how the United Kingdom is an evil imperialistic country, it's like, well, yeah, unsurprisingly, young men don't want to go into a system or serve a country that fucking despises them, right?
What do you mean you don't want to fight for us? We've only been demonizing you for the past 20 years.
Hmm. Yeah, exactly right. It's like they immediately turn around. Like, it's like if you enlist or you commission, then they're like you're a stupid idiot Nazi subhuman scum filth. And then the shit in Ukraine happens, right? And now they're like, oh, I thought you were patriotic. Why don't you all enlist and join up and sign up to go die for it and protect us if you're so patriotic? It's like, oh, hang on a minute. I thought you hated me. Fuck you. You can save yourself. Thank you.
See, well, one of my favorite things that the Democratic Party in the United States is doing right now is they're like, all right, well, trying to convince people to vote for us has failed, so we're gonna go with the strategy of vote for us or else. Surely that will work. And well, we discovered that didn't work.
Mm-hmm. No, it didn't.
Because who's going to be returning to Washington come January?
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, I guess like university education in the United States seems to be so bloody expensive. I guess if I were an American personally, like a young American again, I probably would enlist and do my 4 years just to get the GI Bill, because fucking hell, that debt is incredible, right?
One of the reasons why that college is so expensive now is because the government subsidizes so much of it that the colleges are like, all right, well, we can just exponentially increase the rates because the government's going to pay for it, and if you don't, then too bad, you're going to pay for it anyway.
Yeah, ours is heavily subsidized here in the UK, and yeah, eventually what happens is that the government, funnily enough, raises the prices through policy, because as you say, it basically becomes a racket, right? Yeah, government loans for college is a huge racket. You're right. Yeah. Sorry, yeah, go on. You want to say something there?
My computer is acting up right now.
Oh, okay. No problem.
So, well, one of the thing is the colleges are like, all right, well, we can charge the government. Since the government's paying for it, we can charge them as much as they want. And if anyone can't get the government grants and loans, then that's just too bad. But that's only the, 5% of the people who apply for college.
Mm-hmm.
So it's one of those things where it's like, no, the colleges are at this point are pretty much only in it for the money.
Yeah.
Like, well, we're going to charge exorbitant rates simply because the government's going to pay for it.
Yeah, I can't wait. I sincerely hope that the international student racket and the government loan racket is destroyed in the near future, and the universities get fucking hammered hard, and that the administrators become unemployed and really fucking suffer, because it's been going on too long.
Yeah, so another thing is and I'm not sure how many you guys in here have gone to school in the past 15 to 20 years, but one of the things that a lot of US schools now do is, even from elementary school, so for second, third, fourth, fifth grade, they start telling you have to go to college. College is everything. If you don't go to college, you're going to be a bum on the street.
That's right.
And
which is
after
helpful.
20, 30, 40 years of doing this, everyone's suddenly wondering, why is nobody going into the trade jobs? Why is nobody going into the factories? Why is nobody doing this? Why is nobody doing that? Why is nobody becoming a truck driver? Why is nobody getting into construction? It's because you've tricked thousands and thousands of people who would have otherwise gone into those jobs by telling them, hey, you won't have one unless you go to the extra school.
No, that's right. I said, people these days, I mean, it's not these days, it's been for a very long time. People have a very weird disrespect of the trades, and I don't understand why. I've always held skilled tradesmen in higher regards than people who simply have university degrees, right? Like an electrician, a HVAC guy, carpenters are infinitely more capable people than the average university student, right? I've obviously, being a university student, I've met so many fucking weak, just useless, utter just chances, complete waste of oxygen, and they're really high up. They're really high up government bureaucrats with their fancy university degrees. Stupid, honestly. Very arrogant.
So, and it's one of those things where, I mean, shoot, to become a teacher, you need to have 1 to 2 degrees and a bunch of stuff. You need to be able to work well when in a school type environment, and you're only getting paid maybe $50,000 a year,
Mm-hmm.
right? In the U.S. at least.
It's not very much money. It's shocking money.
And meanwhile, you have me as a truck driver, and you want to know how long it took me to learn to drive a semi-truck?
Did it take a long time? Or
3.5 weeks.
3.5 weeks. Yeah, not very long.
3.5 weeks. That was it. The first week was classroom instruction. The second week was the first week was classroom instruction and maneuver instruction. So we'd get in the trucks and we'd perform movement maneuvers, so like backing up, and all sorts of like the different reverse maneuvers. And the second week we'd do more maneuvers, but then we'd also get road time with one of the instructors. So we'd take a what we call a bobtail, which is the truck without the trailer. So we'd take one of those out onto the road for a couple hours. One I'd drive for an hour, another student would drive for an hour, a third student would drive for an hour. Then we'd go back to the I'm going to just call it campus. Then we'd go back to the campus, and another group would take the truck out.
Mm-hmm.
And by like the last half of the week, you'd be out there for however long with the trailer. This time you'd be out there with the trailer, and after the end of the third week, you get picked to you get selected in an order to take your driving test with a member of the Department of Transportation. Luckily for me, I was the first one up for the month, so I got to choose what maneuvers I did. So there were three aspects to this test. There was the straight line back maneuver, there was the offset maneuver, and then you either had to parallel park or do a 90-degree alley dock.
God, that seems really difficult to pull off in those like big rigs, like doing those 3-point turns and shit.
So I could do the alley dock almost no problem.
Mm-hmm.
When they were teaching me how to do the alley dock, it took me like a half hour, and then I could do it almost no problem.
Yeah.
I could not do a parallel park to save my life.
I can barely do a parallel park in just a regular automobile in a regular car.
It's like, I can do the parallel park now after 3 years of experience, but when I was after only 2 weeks in a truck, I could not do parallel park to save my life. And so when I walked into the office to sign up for my test, she's like, "Yep, you're the first one of the month, so you get to choose. You either get to do the alley dock or the parallel park. Mind you, whatever you choose is going to screw everyone else for the month over."
There's a lot of truckers in like VTubing, particularly the Faith Connect community. You should all form like a trucking community for you all of you to talk about trucking.
Yeah. So for me, basically the way that the lady who did the test where I did the test was, so the first person of the month would get to choose what maneuver they did, and everyone else for the rest of the month was screwed, because so I would choose alley dock. The next person would have to choose they didn't get to choose. They would have to do the parallel park. And then after that would be the alley dock again. So they would rotate it. But the first person of the month got to choose what was started with. So let's say you were second in line and you hated doing the parallel park just like me. Well, you are SOL, because I'm doing alley dock since I'm good at that one.
Oh my god, Felix here has just made a great point. He said, open up an independent Phase branch just for shipping merch. I think we do have the solution to the Phase Connect merch issues. There are so many truckers, and it's not just, we got loads of truckers in the Phase community. We just get you guys to start fucking driving trucks to the warehouse.
I think what was it, like a couple weeks ago when the beans were starting to get shipped out. The Canadian post office went on strike right when all the beans were starting to get shipped out, and Sakana made a post about it, and somebody tagged me in it. It was like, get this guy to start shipping your stuff for you.
I mean, why not get Sakana to give you a contract? Why not?
Yeah.
Be the independent contractor for Face Connect.
Yeah, well, I couldn't be an independent contractor. They'd have to buy a truck for me because I still work with the company, so I only drive a company truck. So if I were to leave, I'd have to give the truck back.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough. How many miles you got on that bitch now?
Actually, I just got a new one, so mine is down to, I turned it in at about 390,000, and I got the new one at 1,721 miles because there's about a 1,500 mile break-in period, and now I have just under 20,000 on it. It is a 2025 too.
Oh my god, can you slap like fucking decals and shit on it? Like, could you slap stickers on the truck?
Not really.
Oh.
I mean, I have a couple stickers on the inside, but I mean they're just some small stupid stickers.
Just
I
slap a giant
Bean.
fucking Lumi thing on the side of the truck.
I have the Lumi Bean sitting up on the dash though.
Yeah, I saw that. That's a cute picture. Getting on an adventure with chicken nuggets.
Yeah. One of the comments on that post was, I'm pretty sure a single McDonald's chicken nugget is enough to kill Lumi.
Yeah. Oh no, that said she what did she say? She said she
Only
ate like
salad.
a massive brownie at one time though. Like a high calorie brownie or something. Actually beat
cookies.
Sakana. She beat Sakana in a hot dog eating contest as well.
Oh wow.
I wanted
And
to
I was starting to think that Lumi was vegan.
Yeah. I want to make a joke, funny enough. It's like, oh, Lumi loves to Lumi loves to gobble a few sausages, eh? Yeah.
Yeah, but let's see. So I got the new truck. So it also has brand new tires on it, right? So a lot of our trucks they have kind of worn tires. They have retreads. They have kind of older tires on it. So mine being brand new has brand new tires on it, right?
Yeah.
Which I thought was going to be phenomenal for winter driving. And I mean they are a lot better than the tires on my old truck were, but the better effect is non-existent on ice.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Because I was going through Indianapolis earlier this week, and I was going from, I think it was I-74 to I-465 south, or I-465 north.
Is that big route?
Except the interchange ramp is angled. Kind of like how the NASCAR tracks are, you know how like they have that angling on the corners.
Oh god, that sounds terrifying.
So, I mean, if you're at speed, it's not a problem. And if you're at speed, the tires are keeping the road warm enough to melt the ice. The problem was we were going at 0 miles an hour.
So you were sliding.
So here's what would happen is when I went to start going, my drive tires would slip and they would start spinning without me actually moving forward, and it would cause the truck to start sliding down towards the ground.
Oh, whoa.
So I mean there was at one point where I wasn't jackknifed, but I mean like the front of my trailer and my cab were not pointed in the same direction.
Oh god, that must have been terrifying.
So, I mean, it wasn't... See, if this happens at speed, it is so much worse.
Yeah.
But because I was going like 2 miles an hour, I was like, this is more of an annoyance than anything. Because, I mean, I was able to correct it eventually. And once we got moving again, the road warmed up and the ice started to melt. But... man, it is such a strange feeling trying to go forward and your truck like it's kind of like I don't even know how to describe it, but the truck starts sliding and you're looking at like the back of your trailer and you're like, this isn't how it's supposed to be.
Hang on a minute, that ain't right. I should be looking that way.
Let's see, I am flatbed Vinny.
How long do the tires normally last on a rig of that size?
Uh, they last quite a long time.
10,000 miles?
Way over 10,000 miles. I've already put 10,000 miles on these tires.
Not bad. Yeah.
So a lot of times what they'll do is so we don't really focus as much on miles as we do wear and tear on the tires. So there's a certain tread depth that we are required to have minimum, and because my tires are brand new, I mean they meet that requirement easily. But I won't use tires that are in the single digits for tread depth during the winter time. During the summer, sure, why not? But wintertime, no. I need at least double digits for tread depth.
What brand of tires do you use?
Whatever the company gets their hands on.
Yeah, can you see the side of them? Are they Goodyears? Are they something else? Some other weird brand? Are they like a cheap Chinese brand?
No, so there's Goodyear, Firestone, all sorts of other ones.
NASCAR tires, hell yeah.
And so, what will happen sometimes is, and you can definitely see this on trailers. So the trailers are the easy place to see this. You'll have, is it like, you know how the trucks, they have the two tires side by side?
Yeah.
So you'll have like the inner tire be Goodyear and the outer tire be Firestone.
Oh, that's weird.
They'll just mix and match whatever they can get their hands on.
Isn't that dangerous when you're driving in like icy roads, for example? If you have tires of different grip levels.
Well, no, it's not different grip levels. They're just mismatched brands.
That's the thing. They can potentially be the same kind of tire, but because of different brands, they have a slightly different compound, which might put them out of, which might make them a bit funny.
No, tires for this type of thing, I believe, are a bit more regulated than.
Okay. So it's standardized then.
Than like your regular road tires, like your regular car tires.
Yeah. So you've got odd socks on your truck, basically, then.
Yeah.
Nice. I wear odd socks. I can't be bothered to find two pairs of the same. No one notices anyway. Why are you staring at my feet, weirdo?
But no. So for us, I mean, I know. My old truck, it had mismatched drive tires, and there's, I mean, it's sometimes, so tires explode, tires get punctured, tires do whatever, and out on the road type fixes, I mean, they're gonna throw on whatever they're able to throw on. Yeah. And one thing that the company does is once you pull your truck into the shop to get it serviced, they'll go through the tires and see and make sure they're all roughly the same tread depth. So you don't have the uneven wear and tear. It doesn't really matter what brand. It's just the tread depth. So
okay.
I know there was the one time I had a drive tire explode. So excuse me. I had a drive tire explode. Had a guy come out and fix it, and then I got pulled into service. It was like a month later, and they replaced all of my drive tires because of that one that had exploded and been replaced.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense. I think at that point you'd want to replace everything just to be sure, maybe.
And so those tires are pressured at 125 psi. So when they go off, you feel it. You feel it for sure.
Probably hear it as well, right?
Yeah, actually, so I'm going to send you a photo via Twitter. I'm going to send you a photo of what it looks like when a drive tire explodes.
Ooh, okay.
And if you want to pull that up on stream, if you're able, let me see. Hold on, let me.
Hang on, hit Pascal
my
Saucer with this again.
Pictures.
There you go, Pascal Saucer. There's the Oklahoma again on its side.
Gmod trucking. Here we go.
Stop it. Never.
Oh, Vinny, we use super singles as well. So when I had my drive tire explode on me, honestly, so I was driving through Michigan at the time, and Michigan does not have great roads. And when my dry tire exploded, I swear my truck lifted up and slammed back down on the ground. I thought I drove over a National Guard landmine. I thought the National Guard had like a landmine or something get bumped out of the truck and land on the roadway, and I drove over it or something.
Imagine if that actually happened.
Oh, I mean, I probably wouldn't be alive at that point, but I mean, this scared the crap out of me. And so I maintained control of the vehicle, and I'm like, okay, something just happened. So I looked right, and okay, I didn't see anything. So I looked straight forward again. I looked left, looked into my mirror, and there's chunks of rubber getting thrown into the road. And I'm like, I see. And so I pulled it off to the side of the road. I got out, I looked. The tire was completely torn to shreds. The rim was already dented and scratched and all sorts of other things.
Oh, no.
And I was 300 feet away from a rest area.
Oh, God, that sucks. So close. You were so close.
And well, so I called my fleet manager, and I told him, like, look, this whole thing is gonna need to get replaced anyway, so I'm just gonna limp this into the rest area so I'm not in the freaking roadway. So I did that, and I was able to send you that picture as well. Yeah, and it is not pretty. I'm gonna send you a second photo as well.
I can't see it anywhere. I haven't got a notification of it.
Twitter.
Did you send it on Twitter? Can't even see it on Twitter either. Hang on a minute. Is it hidden somewhere? DMs. Oh, hang on a minute. Did you send it on DMs? You did.
Yes.
No? Oh, there we go. It's finally appeared now. I've only seen it now. Second one, maybe.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, hang on a sec. I just need to open that in a new tab.
Save it and bring it up.
Save it and bring it up. Yep. Give me 1 second.
I'll send you a second one as well.
Okay.
Because, I mean, this... Yeah, so close yet so far.
Well done. Okay.
Oh, 2 days before you started on your own, huh? That's in mine. Let's see, I was... Let's see, October, so November... December, January. I was 3 months out of the trainer truck when my super single exploded. It was so fun.
Christ, yeah. Talk about things going wrong early in your career. That must have been nerve-wracking.
And it definitely woke me up. That's for sure.
Yeah, God, that must have been loud as hell, right?
Dude, it sounded like an explosion.
But basically, it was an explosion if you think about the compression. Yeah.
Yeah, it was, and so this is on the older truck. This isn't on the current truck. Hopefully my tires don't go bad on the new truck, because I'm going to be really upset if that happens.
Oh God, yeah. I just need to. Oh God, Twitter's so annoying with images. I've tried saving it as an image, and I just need to cut it out. But God damn, that looks mangled as hell. Yeah, that does not look good.
No, it does not. And so yeah, I ended up dragging that thing into the rest area, and man, I was like, all right, I'm okay. The truck's okay. The tire's a little screwed up, but we're good.
Yeah, probably gonna have the what they called dispatch screaming in your ear as well about it. When are you gonna get this order done? When are you gonna get this delivery done?
No, so my company is actually really good about this kind of stuff. So whenever something goes wrong on the road, whether it's like an accident or breakdowns or something like that, they're just like, all right, let us know when you can get underway as early as you can, or whatever not. And especially during winter weather, they're like, no, if you do not feel confident driving, then don't drive.
That's very nice of them. I spend a lot of time now on like r/truckers now, ever since like I've heard you talk about trucking stuff, and the stories I see on there, man, it's like, Jesus Christ. Sounds like something from I don't know, it sounds like something from, what's it called? The Hills Have Eyes, some of the stories. I don't know, just one story that always struck out to me is the one about a trucker who like had diabetes or something, and he had like a really fucked up leg from Pascal Saucer. Pascal Saucer sent me a DM whilst I was looking for the second image. He sent me an image of the hood being detonated. Well, Pascal saw, so we still won the war, so I don't care. Okay, wheel 2. Let's put this one up as well. You know, I've had a mostly trouble-free time on the roads, fortunately. Because I'm European, I'm British, we don't spend many miles on the road. So I'm lucky to do about 3,000 miles a year, right? So I don't have any problems. Unlike you Americans who drive God knows how much a year.
Man, I mean, driving is literally my job. So like, there will be times I'll almost put 2,000 miles in a week.
2,000 a week. I can't. That's almost my entire yearly driving in a week. Fucking hell.
See, I really like this close-up version of the blown tire, because you can see just how badly that tire got mangled when it blew.
God, yeah, you can. Oh my God,
like
it's
awful. Not just like this thing almost got inverted.
What I get to imagine the feel through the steering wheel as well. You probably really felt that one.
I'd say actually. So from what I remember, I didn't really feel anything through the steering wheel as much as I did through like through the seat.
Yeah, it just shook the entire cabin, I imagine.
Oh yeah, it shook.
Oh, that's your problem. Good. Well, there's your problem, son. Goddamn tire blew out your rim.
I showed that picture to quite a few people, and some of them were like, dude, that is the worst tire blowout that I've ever seen. And some of these guys were like 10, 15 years on the road, and they're like, dude, this is the worst tire blowout that I've ever seen before.
Yeah, this tire tried to do a fucking great escape.
Luckily for me, it's my first one.
Yeah. The tires trying to like do the NASCAR thing where it goes, you know, spinning off like a million miles away.
Yeah.
So it's buried it in the corner of like the bottom left of the tire. Bloody hell.
That's it. I was honestly amazed that it hadn't like ripped out or destroyed anything else on the truck, because if you look right, if you're looking at the image, right top left of the image, there's that like little chamber thing and the lines coming from it.
Yeah.
That's my brake chamber and brake lines.
Yeah.
So if those get knocked off, then I'm in some deep doo-doo.
I'm surprised. Yeah, I'm surprised the blowout actually didn't slice them.
No, and I was looking at it. I'm like, wow, this is screwed up.
Yeah, this is lucky, man. You got off lucky here.
Yeah. I know. I have had, since that one, I've had 2 trailer tires explode on me, but neither of them were nearly as bad. They were more annoyances than anything.
Hey, have you ever had like 3 blacked out Honda Civics with green underglow ever try to steal your cargo?
No, but I had a group of hoodlums trying to climb onto the truck once when I was driving through Chicago.
Oh, was one of them bold and talking about family a lot? Did he have a shotgun?
No, as far as it wouldn't have surprised me if some people in this group had some switches on them. But so what happened was I was trying to go to a store to spend the night at that I was delivering to, and I came to a stop sign, and out of an alleyway, these 20 individuals came running out, surrounded the truck, tried climbing on board the truck. And if you go back to that first image I sent you, there's that area in front of the trailer, but behind the cab, those lines that go from the cab to the trailer, the green, blue, and red, those are my, well, one's the electrical line, the other 2 are brake lines. Those are my air lines that put air to the brakes, so I have control over the brakes.
Right.
So if I lose those, guess what? My trailer brakes are going to be applied. I can't move. And I saw a kid who probably looked like he was 15 climb up right where those were. And
I mean, at that point, it's Darwinism.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, I am not sticking around to find out.
Yeah, I mean, oh my God. And you know his mother's going to see you anyway and see that you murdered his baby. You murdered her baby. It's like, ma'am, your son was retarded.
Here's the thing. If I didn't see it, it's not my problem.
Not my problem. Nope. I ain't insured for this, buddy. Not my problem.
But was probably one of the scariest nights of my life, because I mean, especially if he had pulled the red one, then I would have been stranded in the middle of Chicago in a not so friendly neighborhood.
It's like a reverse bomb like diffusal thing, isn't it? It's like, oh shit, please do please do cut the wrong wire, otherwise we're all fucked.
I'd rather if they just didn't do it at all.
just don't cut any wire. No, don't defuse the bomb.
Yeah.
Leave the bomb ticking.
Yeah. But I mean, I was hauling kind of like the same stuff you see there. It was tarped, it was covered, it was lumber, shingles, stuff that these people didn't want. So I don't know why they decided my truck was the one they were going to try to rob.
Have you ever seen any? Have you seen any Zerg on the road before? And I don't mean people from Missouri.
And wait, hold on, say that again. Any what?
Have you seen any Zerg on the road before? And I don't mean people from Missouri. Ooh, Vanilla D sent me an image. Ooh, we got. Oh my god! Sure. And it's a Goodyear tire as well.
I want to see this one.
Yeah, hang on. I'm gonna get this one up. Look at that. Fuck it out.
All right.
Look at this. Bloody hell.
Let's see what is it?
Oh, that's amazing. What's the green yellowy stuff on the tire there, Vinny? Is that tire filler? Hang on. Blowout free. Save that. Let's get it up on screen. Image free, browse. Oh my god, please. Where is it gone? Oh no.
It's in the downloads tab.
Here we go, got it. Yeah. Nice. Okay, and then let's put this on. There we go. Look at this bad boy.
Oh, Jesus.
Look at that. Bloody hell.
That looks... Oh, my God. Oh, that... I want to say almost... What even is that? Hold on, let me try to make this a little bigger.
Oh, that looks nasty.
How did that even work?
Yeah.
I don't
Look
understand.
at that thing. It looks like a fucking giant ass dog or something started having a good chew at it. Try to like rip the tire out. Oh, you got this. Oh, you got a description. Let's have a look. What did Rinny say? My super single blowout. Splash guard got disintegrated. Damaged the trailer splash guard and marker lighter. Bet the airline off for offloading the trailer forwards and down blocking the side box from the opening and chunks of tire on the cab. Fucking hell.
Oh my god, that's
incredible.
That is intense. Holy crap.
that's a dramatic blowout. Bloody hell.
Yeah, it is. Oh my god, that's insane, man.
Did it give a nice pop, Vinny? Did you get a nice explosion?
Yeah, that one looks crazy. I haven't had one like that. I mean, the closest I've had is that one that happened in the middle of winter, where my tire like tried to invert itself.
Oh,
man, that one looks crazy.
Fud the fuzz, yeah, and the rest like fud. What's the how many blowouts do you reckon are like the average for a year? Do you get at least a blowout a year?
Let's see. I'd say that's probably the average. I can't remember when the last time I had one was, but I know I've had 3 in total. I had the drive tire, then I've had 2 trailer tires, and I've been working for about 3 years, so about 1 a year.
The whole truck's hell in his ass. Good thing he had a manual and a J brake. Oh, do you have a manual, Joe? Is your truck manual?
Nope, I have an auto.
You have an auto. Ah. Is it becoming more and more common now? Are they replacing all the manuals with automatics?
Most companies will have you drive autos.
Do you know what kind of gearbox you have? Do you know what kind of transmission you have?
Let's see. I couldn't tell you off the top of my head. It comes from Detroit though. That's all I know.
Yeah, I just wonder what kind of automatics a kind of truck like this uses.
Man, I'm not paid to know that. I'm paid to haul freight.
I wonder if they use like the Toyota. I wonder if it's a Toyota or it's like Chevrolet or something. I don't know. Let's have a look actually. Watch transmission.
Well, I guess we can find out what. Well, I guess it doesn't really matter what Freightliner uses. As my company, we drive Freightliners and. Pretty much, I guess, wherever Freightliner gets their stuff from.
Oh, 18 speed manuals and torque converter automatic. Allison automatics. Yes, the Allisons. Okay. But you can get 18 speed manuals. Incredible.
Oh yeah, I've heard of 18 speed manuals before.
God, 18 speed manuals. Amazing. Amazing bit of engineering, that. Ooh. God, I'm going to spend all night now, like, autistically looking up like, truck transmissions now. This is fascinating.
And I can, you want to find out what a week on the road is like? I can get you a rider's pass.
How? Yeah, I want a week on the road. Yeah, can I ride shotgun, like literally. Give me a shotgun.
Here's the caveat though: is if you're in the truck, you're gonna work.
Ah, I don't want to work there. Brokeback Mountain. No, it's not going to be Brokeback Mountain. It's going to be like fucking. It's going to be like Twisted Metal, where I'm going to be shooting people who get too close to the truck. You're going to see me on like. You're going to see us on America's Wildest Police Chases. Oklahoma. They're the.
So I will say the work I do is so much easier with two people than it is with one person, and. So I know every once in a while when I deliver locally to the house, I'll force my brother to help me put away all my stuff. And he hates doing it. He absolutely hates doing it. But to me, I'm like, man, this is the easiest it's gonna get. Because try doing this on your own twice a day.
Yeah, it must be very lonely as well, right? If you're on your own.
I keep busy with Phase Connect and working outside the truck.
Yeah, I can see why like having someone like Lumi as your cameo or she is like ideal, because she just doesn't shut the fuck up. That she just goes on and on, keeps you busy, or keeps you occupied when you're on your long quiet roads.
Yeah. I like to listen to a lot of retrospective videos, or like analysis videos or stuff like that. There's a channel I just found that does shipwreck videos of like ships that have been not ships that were on Deadliest Catch, but ships that were like known to the ships of Deadliest Catch.
I love Deadliest Catch. That's such a good show. I've been watching that for about 10 years.
One of the recent well, not recently, it happened a few years ago. But the Scandia's Rose went down a couple years ago, and this YouTube channel just did a not like a retrospective on it, but they did an analysis of it, of what happened, what the crew did, and all that kind of stuff, and how they sank and all that. And they have like photos and videos. They even somehow got videos of the rescue helicopters.
Oh wow!
Which I thought was pretty neat.
Yeah, I always love watching the rescue helicopters at work. Right, it's always so dramatic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I recently watched a video on Deadliest Catch injuries.
Oh, I know. I think I've seen the one you're probably going to talk about. Yeah, yeah.
And there is the one part of the video where the guy's like shoveling some snow and ice off the deck of the boat, and he puts his hand down and the crab pot slides. Yeah, the crab pot slides and literally like bites off a section of his finger, and so they bring him inside. They're trying to save his finger, and he goes from like the bathroom to the kitchen, and for some reason, I don't know why the cameraman decided we had to do this, but he like sticks his camera down the finger hole to show the audience what happened to his finger, and I'm like, why did you need to show us that?
I'm so glad he showed us that. I'm so glad he showed us that. That was wicked. I love gore. I know the place where the faces are so cold. I drive all night just to get back there. I'm a cowboy. Fucking love the intro to Deadliest Catch as well. So good. Who's your favourite ship in Deadliest Catch? I love the Time Bandits.
Dude, Time Bandit, easily.
Time Bandits, hell yeah. I love those two, they're great.
Yeah, the Time Bandit has always been my favorite.
Cool,
for
cool
the
name,
longest time,
cool flash, yeah.
So for the longest time, and I kind of figured out why, but for the longest time I couldn't name why, but I did not like the Northwestern.
I didn't like the Northwestern either, yeah.
I didn't like the Northwestern, and it didn't have anything to do with Sig. It didn't have anything to really do with his crew. I just didn't like the boat.
Oh, you just didn't like the boat. My kind of problem with the Northwestern is just that Sig is just like it's really boring, and it's like the most. It's like rooting for the most successful person in a sports team. Like nothing ever really goes wrong in the Northwestern, so it's always been kind of boring to me.
Yeah. Well, so I always liked the boats that had the bridges at the back of the boat, so the captain was looking down over the crew and the front of the boat, instead of how the Northwestern set up, where the deck is all behind the bridge and Sig is literally just like looking out over the ocean. I don't know why I have such a gripe with that, but that was for the longest time why I didn't like the Northwestern.
Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
It was just the boat setup, and I don't know why I didn't like it. I just did not like the way the Northwestern was set up.
Yeah, I wouldn't like a bridge that far back either, you know. Yeah, so I'd like to have it as close to the nose as possible, but then I guess, yeah, the optimum design is to have it center.
Well, no, that's why I didn't like the Northwestern, was because the bridge was so far forward.
Oh, the bridge was too far forward.
That were where the bridge was towards the back, so you could see what the crew was doing and look out over the front.
Oh, I see. I thought you said backwards. Okay, no, I like it more further forwards, more centered, maybe nearer the front. Then you can see what the nose is doing a bit better of the ship. Then. Don't want to crash into any icebergs, especially out there. Fucking hell.
Yeah, but now I still prefer the like the Time Bandit setups, but I like the Northwestern now. The Northwestern's pretty cool.
Is Sig's daughter still like still the captain? Like did he transfer captaincy to her yet, or is she still learning?
I honestly I haven't I'll tune in and then I'll miss. So I'm out on the road when it airs, and my family are big Deadliest Catch fans, so they watch it when it comes out, and I don't get home till Friday. So by the time I get home, they've already watched and deleted the episode.
Oh, okay, fair enough. Yeah.
Which is kind of annoying, because I'm like, man, I like this show. I want to watch this show, but I can't because it airs in the middle of the week.
Are you too young to have watched Jackass? Do you know what Jackass is?
Yeah, I've seen plenty of the Jackass movies. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like Jackass still a big thing in America. That's like peak American humor, in my opinion.
There's quite a few actually. I think there was the one movie they did, where they dressed one of the guys up in. Alright, so here's the full story. So they were gonna try to prank it like a taxi driver or something, right? By dressing somebody up in like how somebody from the Middle East would dress, right?
Yeah, I know the one.
And
I know the joke.
And they gave him like a fake beard, right? Where they like glued hair to his face.
Yeah.
What they didn't tell him is they were somebody's pubes.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's gross. It's so nasty.
So two things happened. So they get in the car. They're going to the airport, and it's like, oh yeah, plane, boom, plane go boom, and like literally. So eventually, this taxi driver literally pulls into a lot, rips these guys out of their car, and pulls a gun on them. Yeah. And so now the rest of the Jackass crew is going
it's
like,
a prank. No,
it's a joke. It's a prank. And I think it was like right after that too. They told the guy that they had dressed up that it was somebody's pubes, and he's started to freak out now. And then he's going, I got this shit in my mouth.
Yeah. How did Steve-O get his voice into that state? Like Steve-O sounds like a lich. He sounds like he's been singing in a heavy metal band all his life.
Honestly, I don't even know. I haven't seen a Jackass film in quite some time.
He's like, hello, I'm Steve-O, and I've got a deep voice. So he sounds like he's got some kind of vocal thing. Must have been all the drugs or alcohol or something.
Cigarette cancer.
Cigarette cancer, yeah. Have you seen Generation Kill?
I don't know. Somebody said Generation Kill.
Have you seen Generation Kill?
Oh, dude, I love
I
Generation
fucking
Kill.
love Generation Kill. It's so funny.
All right, so
Captain America.
Have you... Oh, dude, I hate Captain America.
Follow
so
my
much.
tracers.
Should we engage? No.
AK fire, that's the enemy. Police that mustache! You're starting to look
See-
like Elvis's.
You see, Sergeant Major Sixta, he kind of got into the wrong kind of grooming standard.
He did get into the wrong grooming standards. Fucking hell, I saw the news of that. He likes the bloody hell. No wonder he hated mustaches so much. He likes them naked. He likes them. He likes them without the facial hair, doesn't he? Likes them before they hit puberty. Bloody hell. Godfather.
But yeah, that's the Godfather had throat cancer. So honestly, I thought I still have to read the book, so I still have to read the book of Generation Kill. But dude, they picked. So I love when they pick when they do shows where they don't pick like tier 1 actors for the parts in these. They kind of pick like the B or C list actors for these parts, because they oftentimes would perform better than the A list actors would. And especially for things like Band of Brothers, The Pacific, or Generation Kill, you know, the B and C list actors were literally like the perfect cast of character, like the perfect castings for those type of shows.
Yeah, because they look like ordinary people as well, right? And it's like they haven't been Hollywoodified, so they know how to act like normal human beings as well, rather than acting like, you know, like the leading man all the time. I think my only problem with the casting of Generation Kill is the guy who did Lieutenant Nate Fick, I think was a bad choice, because he looks 12 and he always looks like he's on the verge of crying. And there's very few officers, even in the rear echelon motherfucker ranks, who would look like that soy, basically, let alone a like Force Recon lieutenant. I don't think would, you know, basically look like that, look and act that much of a pussy, in my opinion.
Well, so actually, I thought Lieutenant Fick was actually portrayed really well, and especially considering he was the captain of the company. Is one of the guys I did not like. Well, not I mean, how to describe this? I didn't like what they did in the series, but how they were portrayed was phenomenal.
Don't worry, I'm still here, by the way. My model's frozen. I just need to restart it.
So, I remember. I don't know if you ever heard of the YouTube channel, The Almighty Loli, but
yeah, I know Almighty Loli. Yeah.
he did an hour, I think it was like an hour and a half retrospective on Generation Kill, and it is such a phenomenal video. I highly recommend it.
Exactly. Okay, I'll have to check that out actually after stream.
Yeah, so I know one of the things that I thought the series portrayed fairly well was the discrepancy in command types. So like, you know, you had Lieutenant Fick, who was almost revered by his men, and then you had the rest of the officers who were either incompetent or were only in it for the glory. Right. Yeah,
Fick was a great officer. I think I remember reading somewhere that apparently the reason why Encino Man and Captain America were the way they are is because they were actually intel officers who were basically forced into the role of company commanders because essentially they didn't have any trained or experienced guys to fulfill those roles.
Yeah, and so that's one of the reasons Trombley got pushed into First Recon as well. He wasn't a Recon Marine, but he was just kind of pulled and gone and told, "Yep, you're in the Recon battalion now. Good luck." Trombley is
Trombley's a fucking
special boy.
I mean, Trombley's a fucking psychopath. Trombley's funny in a sense, and it's like shocking. I mean, I've worked
We'll get
with
some later.
I've worked with US Marines before, right? Armor guys, though, not infantry guys, and it's like, yeah, the standard USMC like Lance Corporal, I tend to find they're like a really solid, reliable bunch of guys, but it's like, yeah, when on their off time, they can do some really weird, like fucking shocking shit, right? That you think, fucking hell.
Yeah.
Like, what are these people's problems? They're really weird. Like like American Sniper as well, where there's that scene where, you know, Chris Kyle is shooting, you know, he's like sniping that woman, and he snipes a kid with the RPG-7 or something, right? I can't remember what the kid had. He had like a RPG, he had like an RPG grenade thing, and when the Marine like watches a kid get shot by Chris, he goes, fuck, that was gnarly. And it's like, yeah, that is my experience. That's what all US Marines are like in my experience. They're all like that. Like, you show them something really fucking weird and depraved, and they're like, fuck, that's gnarly, dude.
I know. I think it was there's a couple retrospective videos on YouTube about Generation Kill. I'm not sure if it was the Almighty Loli's video who said this, but it might have been somebody else. But they said that the generation of soldiers that went into Iraq and Afghanistan in 2003, it was really the first, like, the first generation that had been raised on the internet.
Oh yeah,
now,
that makes sense.
You go back to like the World War II, and now everyone's fighting for God and country. They're fighting to protect their homeland, even if it's the United States. And then you go to Vietnam, where people are kind of questioning it, but they're still very much, you know, they're like, well, no, they say we're defending our homes, but you know, we still have our commitment to each other. You know, surely our government wouldn't lie to us. But by the time you get to the era of Generation Kill, being lied to by your government is expected.
Yeah, basically. I think most people at this point do realize that basically when they're serving in the military, they are, as Clausewitz would say, they are the continuation of politics by other means, and they are there to essentially fulfill the ego or whatever nonsense the politicians in charge want to, and that whatever they're fighting for is probably not worth it in terms of the objective, but then that's not why you deploy, and that's not what you fight for. Obviously, when you're in the uniform yourself, you do it to get home safely, and you do it for the sake of your mates, right?
Yeah. And I know I said the point was that, like, no, this is the first generation that grew up on MTV. They grew up with Google. They grew up with more readily available information at their hands. And even right from the get-go in Generation Kill, no, they're going, yeah, no, we may be invading this country for BS reasons, but we're here, we might as well do it anyway.
There's not a reason why, there's but to do and die.
I love how they gave Oppum shit for saying that immediately after.
Yeah, I mean, he hasn't earned the right to say that yet. I mean, it's not a very appropriate thing to say either. Yeah. But yeah, fucking.
I used to.
Fucking, I was just gonna say, Sergeant Major Sixter is so funny. I love him in that movie.
All right, so I really enjoy how Sixter was portrayed. I'm not sure if he was exactly like that, but I enjoyed the way he was portrayed because it made me absolutely hate him. And it's one of those things where, like, especially in one of the early scenes where he goes up to Ray and is chewing him out for having his shirt untucked, and I'm like, man, of all things, that's what you're gonna yell about while you guys are not giving out your battalion the equipment it needs. You're gonna worry about the shirt tails being untucked.
You're starting to look like Elvis's.
Yeah.
Marine,
like,
your mustache hairs is in violations of exceeding the face at the ends of your lips or something.
Yeah, the corners of your mouth.
At the corners of your mouth. Police that mustache!
Telling you, man, Hitler stashes reg.
You mocking me? your hairs hanging from your mouth areas. You are unsightly, ungodly, and you are in violation of Godfather's grooming standard. Do you read me, Sergeant Patrick? You has until 0000 to unfuck yourself.
See, and I really love in that scene where you see Sergeant Patrick kind of like look behind Sixta, and you see, I forget what his name is.
Yeah,
he's
guys
pointing at his mustache and throwing the Roman up.
Throwing the Roman salute and goose stepping, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, what did he say? Remind me of the chaplain now, when he get like the chaplain comes around and he wants to like have everyone, do mass or something before they begin the operation, and they're like, and he's like, God bother at your 9 o'clock. sorry, chaplain. I'd love to enjoy in your godly rituals, but unfortunately that would be offensive to my conniving Hebrew like team sergeant who is Jewish, and he's a certified Christ killer.
Yeah, I really, so one of the things that I think Generation Kill really got right was the banter between all of the men.
Yeah, you can tell these guys have been in the squad a long time.
Even when they would go kind of far with it, like with Ray versus the chaplain. Like that's not something that you should probably say to a chaplain like ever.
No, I don't know if that's real.
Anyway.
Yeah, I don't know if that's real. That's pretty bad. I would expect, particularly an officer of the chaplain's rank, actually, to, if not himself, then certainly like pull up the guy's CO on that, because that's really quite fucking shocking language to use in front of an officer.
I mean, even if that particular event didn't take place per se, it's something that I could 100% see happening.
Mm-hmm. I could definitely believe it happening, but at the same time, it's kind of like fucking hell. Yeah.
See, here's one thing I judge movies on when it comes to realism and accuracy. Is I don't judge it necessarily on if it happened exactly specifically as it's portrayed. I judge it based off the likelihood of that happening, or happening in a rough sense. Like, did this happen specifically here? Maybe not. Did it happen? Did it probably happen? Most likely.
Yeah. I think the thing I tend to find is with chaplains, regardless, is that chaplains are always just incredibly like intelligent and just very wise and emotionally, intelligent people. It's like everybody goes to the chaplain for advice. Even I went to like the chaplain just to have like a talk and to be like reassured about who I am and what I'm doing. They're I don't know what it is about the chaplaincy process, but yeah, they're always very well highly thought of chaplains. They're always a very good addition to the team.
So when I was processing out of Fort Jackson to come home, I was transferred to 2nd Battalion, 39th Infantry Regiment for it was like a week and a half to 2 week stay.
Yep.
During this time, I was attacked. I was assaulted by a couple of trainees, and I wasn't physically injured, but you know that scene in Black Hawk Down with Shugart and Gordon, where they're kind of surrounded in the helicopter and they're kind of like holding everyone, all the Somalis at bay.
Yeah.
So that's what it felt like, because this happened in the middle of the night. I got ripped out of my bunk, and all I can hear is my bunk surrounded and the people yelling and jumping all around and all sorts of stuff. And I'm like, man, if someone steps forward, I'm going down swinging. And
was it hazing?
Happened, but
was it hazing?
Well, no, I was trying to process out.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like they were hazing me in. They just apparently
hazing you out.
Thought that I had. Well, apparently somebody thought I had stolen a blanket from one of them, because my battalion had issued me 2 blankets. Their battalion only issues 1 blanket. So when they saw me with 2 blankets, they're like, "Hey, this guy stole one of our blankets because some idiot decided to lose his." So that's why I got ripped out of my bunk in the middle of the night, instead of somebody just asking, "Hey, no, where'd you get those 2 blankets from?" Anyway, the point is, once we got back to 3rd Battalion, 34th, the chaplain actually came out to me and was like, "Hey, no, we heard you got attacked. Don't tell us what happened." And so I did, and they're like, "Yeah, no, that's there was a bunch of other things that happened, not just to me. There was like 4 or 5 guys from my battalion with me for various things, injuries, medical stuff, and pretty much all of us had been mistreated in some way. And our chaplain was like, dude, this is unacceptable. No, this is something that we have to report."
It seems like a fucking unhinged unit.
Yeah,
Christ.
it was not fun.
Especially for, what is it, a construction unit? A construction platoon?
It was basic training. So
it's
the way
basic,
the
okay.
U.S. training works is all basic is infantry training, but advanced training is individualized. So once you go through
so you went in unit,
standard infantry training, that's when you get split off and sent to whatever rear echelon job that you're going to be doing.
Yeah, it's the same here. Yeah.
But all of the things where your basic training and advanced training are the same thing. So like for an infantryman or tank crewman or whatever, all that takes place at Benning. All the 3 other basic training bases, it's luck of the draw.
God, yeah, that makes sense. How long's basic training there? How long's basic training in the army?
8 weeks.
8 weeks.
And then your advanced training is it varies. It can be like apparently like as short as 3 weeks to 12 months.
Yeah, that makes sense for something like construction. Yeah, it takes a bit of time to train people up in that. Ooh. Oh wow, 9 weeks now. Oh, do you
It's an extra week.
Is Shark Week a Marine thing, or was that in the army as well? Like, what's Shark Week? I've heard about Shark Week.
Shark Week. I know there used to be the Shark Attack, which was the thing that
that was it, Shark Attack, yeah.
Yeah. Shark Week is a TV thing.
Yeah, that's right.
So the Shark Attack, so the way it worked, and I was one of the last units to really get the Shark Attack, was you get off the buses, the drill sergeants are there for the whole company, not just your platoon either, it's for the whole company, and they're yelling at you, they're screaming at you, you got to do exercises, they're stopping trainees and all sorts of stuff, and then you all pile into the pit, then they call out what platoons are going where, and then once you get to your platoon, you do a bunch of more exercises, get yelled at more, do all sorts of other things. You got to hold your bag up, put it down, hold it back up, put it down, hold it back up, and all sorts of other things. And so one way I got around the first part was I would always put somebody in front of me. So when they got nabbed by the drill sergeant, I would find somebody else to just kind of run behind. And so the drill sergeant would yank the person out from in front of me, so I could just make it to the pit no problem without being stopped.
So did they do like the crazy screaming thing in the army as well, or was that more of a Marine thing?
No, they do that for the Shark Attack, but after that they toned it down quite a bit.
Oh, okay. No, fair enough. I've seen like there's like an old video on YouTube of like some Marine stood to attention. I think an officer or something comes in and the guy doesn't salute, and then just out of nowhere, like 7 different drill instructors just come in, they throw his cover off and they start screaming at him for like 3 minutes.
Yeah, that wouldn't really surprise me, to be honest. Marines are a different breed, man. Marines are a different breed.
Yeah, kudos to him for not wasting his time with something he doesn't want to do. Yeah, I guess it kind of sucks that you had a shit training platoon, but I mean, yeah, unfortunately, the military doesn't always attract the particularly best and brightest of society. But then, yeah, I guess it's something that you have to deal with, unfortunately.
Yeah, so
or you can choose not to, I guess.
Yeah, another thing that kind of made me kind of like lose my motivation for staying in the army was, I mean, so I did all of the training exercises, right? I went on all 3 ruck marches. I went on all 3 field exercises. I did everything except past the 2-mile run, right? And I know there were people who did not pass rifle qualification. There were people who did not pass grenade training. There were people who did not pass the final ruck march. There were people who...
How do you fuck up grenade training? Even I didn't fuck up grenade training, and I can't throw worth shit.
I don't even know. But here's the thing is, so we had a list of things that we had to do in order to move to advanced training, right? There were things we need to do to graduate. And on these were like, I think it was like the obstacle courses, all 3 ruck marches. We had to pass rifle qualification. We had to pass grenade training. We had to pass the field exercises. And I did all of that except the one thing, which was the 2-mile run in the PT test. So I could not pass the PT test. But I know there were people who did not who literally did not go on the final ruck march.
Yeah.
And they got a waiver to go to AIT, to advanced training. There were people who did not qualify with the rifle. They got sent to advanced training. There were people who did not do the ruck marches. They still got waivered to advanced training. So I'm like, all right, either these are graduation requirements or they're not. Why am I being held to a different standard? Because I've done things that none of these people have done, and they all have done one thing that I was not able to do. Why do they get to graduate, not me?
Yeah, I guess so. That's probably up to like the discretion of the company commander, but yeah, I don't know what their rationale is. I'd be interested in having that conversation with him to see why he thought that was the case. I don't know. Could just be something like really weird and rigid in their qualifications for passing someone out, maybe.
I mean, look, from what we were told was these requirements are not negotiable. If you do not pass rifle qualification, you do not graduate. If you do not pass the ruck marches or field exercises, you do not graduate. But there was close to it, almost 24 people in the company who failed one of these graduation items who still got graduated.
What, even without retaking the test?
I mean, literally, there was one person who did not go on the final ruck march at all. They literally stayed at a different battalion and got waved through.
Yeah,
no
that's shockingly bad. Oh my god, I would never ever, as an officer, I would never ever do that. No. Everybody passes rifle qualification. Everybody passes the basic fitness test. Otherwise, oh my god, that's awful. That's shocking. That's a shocking display of leadership. Fucking hell. Oh.
See, so
that really upsets me.
I'm not necessarily upset that they didn't graduate me because I failed the PT test, because I failed a graduation item. That's fair.
Exactly. But it's not about that. It's
you have all of these other people who are failing graduation items and are still getting passed through.
They shouldn't have been passed through. They should have been back-scored, or they should have been back-termed or whatever. Or they should have been able to retake the test and pass it first.
That's one of the other things that really upset me, and I'm like, no, I'm done with this. If you guys aren't going to graduate me, then I'm just going to leave.
No, I mean, this is the thing, right? Pavlo says that's a dirty secret of military training courses. They can get anyone through if they want to. So I guess from my own experience, I can kind of tell you how that worked, as I've kind of dealt with some recruits before who are very, I guess, like very wishy-washy, and in my opinion, quite clearly didn't want to be on the course. And I wanted to bin them, which is also what the recruits themselves wanted. But I was basically ordered to keep them on by the company commander. But kind of one thing you can do is up to your discretion. But normally that conversation you have as a lieutenant is with the company commander. You kind of give them a breakdown as to what the problems with the recruit is. One of the questions they normally ask is like, is the lad motivated? Does he want to be here? And then you give obviously the company commander that kind of, you give him the breakdown on the recruit, and then it's at the company commander's discretion. He can either say we're going to back-term the recruit and make him do like the last 3 months of training, maybe give him a retest if it's not too serious, or even if you want to get rid of him, then he's basically ordered to remain on the course for at least for another 6 weeks. or even if manpower shortages are a massive thing, then they might even just waive it entirely and say, we're going to graduate you anyway, even though you didn't pass the test, but we're going to put you on like a company commander's warning. So I don't know, maybe some of them were put on some kind of warning where if they weren't squeaky clean once they got to their unit and did their specialization training, then they would be kicked out of the army maybe.
So I know, so for us, Aram brings up that if people failed rifle, then they went to a different battalion. If they failed PT, it was at discretion. So my unit told us that there was one way you could still get graduated, even if you failed the PT test, and that was if you showed a significant improvement from the first test to the last test. And unfortunately for me, I just was not really able to show that much improvement. So they're like, well, we can't graduate you. And again, I'm like, all right, no, that's fair. But why are you graduating all these other people?
Yeah, I know. It's fairness. That's the problem, right?
It's one thing. Like I was showing improvement still, but it wasn't nearly, as significant as they needed. So, but I mean, I'm looking around. I'm like, look, this person literally spent a week at another battalion and didn't even attempt the final ruck march. Why are they still getting graduated? They didn't even attempt the final field exercise.
Okay, I think we will leave it there then. I've actually haven't eaten dinner and it's 10 o'clock at night here, so I need to get off and eat.
Oh yeah, you should probably go do that.
No, thank you very much for yet another month of our lovely podcast. It was a lot of fun. Learned a lot about trucking, and I always love like griping about the military stuff. We should probably do a stream where we just talk about what fucking pisses us off about about that. Maybe that might be fun.
Episode 3 right there.
Episode 3 right there. Yeah, let's just
right
whine about what it's like to be in the military. That'd be good fun. Anyway,
actually, I got some ghost stories from my basic training unit, which is kind of weird and odd, but I'll save those for next time.
Yeah, let's save those for next time. Thank you very much for your time, Joe. Thank you very much for watching, everybody. We had a lot of fun. Let me put Joe's Twitch channel in the chat as well. Actually, let me put your Twitter thingy bobby in there as well.
Yep, yeah, I mean you have it in the description, but
oh, do I? Oh, yeah, I do. Fuck, it's in the description. Yeah. Make sure you subscribe to Joe. Follow him on Twitter.
Let's see here. I'll copy and paste both my links really quick. Copy. I'm not sure if that worked. No, that didn't work. Hold on. So I need to put a space here.
Yeah, I'm glad you enjoyed it. Cheers, Favor. Thanks, everybody.
There we go. All right. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. We'll see you guys next month.
See you guys next month. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye. Love you all. My lovely boys.